Beautiful. Listen, before you start, um, I know I've been off for a week, so great to be
You have.
back. Hello.
Yes.
And I think it's
It's
your
wonderful
turn
for
to
you to
bring
be
us in.
back.
It's your turn to open us up, yes?
Well, I think it technically was supposed to be your turn, but I had something to say, so
Ooh.
it's me today.
Uh, right. So just before we kick off, I really, really hope I'm in the mood for this to be, I want this to be nasty. I'm really hoping you've got something nasty up your, you don't have sleeves. You'd never have
I
sleeves.
don't have sleeves. I don't like things on my skin, but
But I'm hoping you've got
somewhere in
something.
here, probably like maybe in my cleavage, like where I keep pencils, that there's
I
something
hope, I
nasty.
hope, I hope you've got something nasty between your titties for us.
I think I'm gonna deliver this fine
Okay.
day. I think you're gonna enjoy this one. It's not necessarily new to you per se, but
Mm,
details I think are gonna be new.
so fucking give it to me. Come on.
Yeah, well, Mark,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is becoming a common refrain here, but I was reading another maritime history book.
That
This time it was
was the
about
horn of
Cap.
a boat.
That's how they
Get
sound.
away. As it kind of drifts into some rocks.
Nailed it. That's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah.
This time it was about Captain Cook, whom you might remember from my story about his very gnarly death
Sure.
at the hands of some fed up Hawaiians in 1779.
Yes, which some people took umbrage at.
Yes,
How
on
dare
YouTube.
you?
How dare
How
you? He
dare
is a
you
British
besmirch the
hero.
name of yeah, yeah, yeah.
Can you imagine being offended that someone made a YouTube video about some guy who's been dead for 300 years?
Nah.
Like, come on, you need a hobby. You need
Yep,
to
life's
you
far
need
too
to get
short.
out more, right? But anyways, the book, The Wide Sea by Hampton Sides, is a pretty interesting and in-depth look at Cook's voyages, his virtues, his shortcomings, the whole deal. The guy's like basically in the beginning of it, like, I'm not here to lionize him, I'm not here to demonize him, I'm just here to tell you what he did, what was going on, you know? And
Just
you
for
decide for yourself.
those of us who can't remember me, um, just in a couple of sentences, what particularly why was he such a shitbag?
Well, I mean, I'll talk a little bit about this here, but the sort of long story short, is that on his final voyage, he was known for being, in fact, I said this here in episode 75, for an explorer, for the vast majority of his career, he was quite upright. Obviously, there's no like unproblematic kings of exploration. All of them are
Yeah,
problematic. You know, he was a
yeah.
man who was doing this for empire, all that kind of stuff. So, like, we're not going to let him off the hook for anything like that, but generally he was, you know, he wasn't trying to Christianize anybody, he wasn't really trying to change anybody. He largely sort of respected natives and things like that as he was traveling around and had fairly good relationships with most of the people that he encountered
Okay.
until his final voyage, at which point uh people basically reported that he had like a huge change in personality and started becoming extremely strict and angry and ragey towards both the natives and his own crew. So he started doling out
Huh.
like really harsh punishments, including like someone stole something. I think it was a goat. Someone stole a goat, one of the
Mm.
natives, and nobody would say who did it and all of that stuff. And so he just had his men burn down the entire village, which was a thing in his earlier voyages he never would have done. But for whatever reason, flip, switch,
Well,
flipped,
we,
and he
we
started doing
for
that.
whatever reason doesn't sound like something, you would say. Why? What do we attribute
Right.
that to?
I'll get
That's a
there.
me thing. I say.
That
That's what
is,
I say.
yeah, I will get there. And nobody knows for sure. That's why I say for
Mm.
whatever reason, because we can only postulate
Speculate, of
on
course.
what the hell happened. It's not like he had a psychiatrist. And in fact,
No.
an interesting thing about Captain Cook that this book noted, is that he obviously wrote down a lot. He was prolific in his journaling of what was going on, but he never talked about his feelings. So we have
Mm.
so many journals of the things that he did and experienced and stuff like that, but no picture of who the guy was in his head.
That's a red flag. If you're gonna journal to that extent and not
Right.
once offer any insight into your own state
Yeah,
of
like
mind. That is,
what's going on in there? That
yeah, yeah,
feels
yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
purpose.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, we can't fully know what the hell happened on that, but I will talk a little bit about at least one hypothesis about that in here.
Wonderful,
So we'll get
wonderful.
that. So that's basically, and then of course he was killed in Hawaii by the natives there after sort of overstaying their welcome
Mm.
on the island and riling up some hostilities with the folks there.
And just sum up for us again how he was killed, how he was dispatched, because it is all coming back to me, much like seeing Lean Dion.
Yeah, the the story, and as I said, again, this is an episode 75. If you want to go more in depth with it, it's
75.
yeah, 2 years ago we talked
Fucking
about
hell,
this.
man.
Doesn't feel like that long ago, but it
No,
was
it
two
doesn't.
years ago.
Maybe it's because you
Yeah,
talk about boats all the time.
I was gonna say it's probably just because I talk about boats so much that it's like, oh, it was like yesterday, but it was somebody else. So we again are sort of piecing together what happened from various narratives of what became of Captain Cook. But amongst the stories essentially is that the natives more or less, overtook him in the water. Potentially he might not have been able to swim, so he couldn't get back to his boat. And they hacked him to bits. Well, supposedly, again, also he kind of gave them gave his men like don't hurt them, you know ironed
Whilst he was
this
in the water, they cut him
whilst they
up.
were, yeah, they chopped him to
Ah, that's
bits,
great.
and they like gave bits to various people in the tribe. There's like a thing about like how someone on the ship like solemnly came back with like a chunk of like his leg or something like that, like this is all we
Uh,
have left of him.
did they eat any of him?
I don't think that they ate him, not from my recollection.
Okay.
They definitely in this book they talk about the Cook's crew coming across various cannibalistic tribes here and there,
Hmm.
and some of the men indulging, actually trying human at these various rituals and things like that, and then claiming like we spat it back out. Of course, we didn't,
Yeah, they didn't
defile
inhale.
ourselves by actually, yeah, we didn't inhale pretty
So you're
much.
telling me I don't get to say was Captain cooked?
Oh
I
no,
don't even. You don't even. Can't even give
unfortunately,
me that. Okay.
unfortunately, no. He was
Boo.
just hacked up and handed around to various people as a
Okay.
result of his sins.
Shaying
Um,
about.
right. But like I said, this book is about his journeys and all of that kind of stuff that happened. One of the things that I found fascinating in this book that did not come up when I was researching his death was that one of Captain Cook's hugest concerns was preventing his men from spreading STDs to natives everywhere that they went.
Well, good. I mean, all you're doing
Right.
is, you're just telling me that he was a stand-up guy.
Yeah, like again, like I said, this is why it's so kind of weird that Cook like
Yeah.
turned so
Yeah.
much in the end, because like he's obviously thought of people as lower than him and things like that. And again, he's doing the stuff in the service of Empire. We're not, uh, absolving him of any of that kind of stuff.
No.
But for an explorer, he was more concerned with people than you thought, like than most would have been. So
Hmm.
obviously, he got a bunch of dudes on ships for months to years at a time. And while there's plenty of literature out there to let us know that they would absolutely go to town on each other in a pinch, they were stoked when they hit dry land and would find some fine island honeys waiting for them. Especially since the women that they were encountering usually didn't have all the European Christian hangups about sex that they were
I
used
see.
to. In some places, the men would like pay for sex in various forms of trades, obviously not in money because the people had no use for that, but in things that could be
Oldest
useful.
profession in the world.
Do that. Right,
Hmm.
exactly. Anywhere you go, people realize we can
Yes.
trade in this. Guys are going to want it. So
Yep.
sometimes they did that. Other times, like tribal leaders would sort of offer up women as like kind of a good faith deal. Like, hey, we're getting along with like you and me, we're buds. How about do you want to like sleep with some of our women just to like say, hey, we're all cool here, right?
Smooth things over. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Gesture of good
Exactly.
faith.
Right. In other places, it seemed that women were just like literally super eager for like the novelty of having sex with these like weird dudes that turned up. Like they were just like, holy shit, like this is new. Why don't we give this a whirl? The men wrote about meeting women who were just like outrageously good at sex, doing stuff they'd never even dreamed of before. There were
Hmm.
some cultures discussed in the book in which girls were basically raised from an early age, being taught by their mothers and aunties about how to give and receive pleasure. So a lot of these places just didn't have huge taboos around sex. It was just something you did. They walked around naked,
Well,
they didn't have shame about their bodies the way that
yeah.
Europeans were obviously taught to. Um, but of course, let's keep in mind that we only have the writings of the crew on all this.
Yes.
So we don't know to what degree they coerced or worse any of the women that they encountered. There's no doubt that many were willing and eager. Like for sure, historians seem to agree on that. That like I said, there weren't the sexual taboos, so some would absolutely have been down a clown. But also these guys were like unwashed and unfamiliar and probably really unappealing to many of the women that they encountered. So, it there's like it's unlikely that never did anything coercive happened here. The idea that they just traveled the world being super chill about consent and never took advantage of anybody. Come on. They just
So
weren't writing in their journals like had a great time sexually assaulting a girl. Can't wait to do it again.
I I am reminded, right? You
Hmm.
know how sometimes when you look at when you recall memories through adult eyes,
Hmm.
they can seem, things occur to you which maybe wouldn't have at the time, right?
Yeah.
I have a memory of singing some fucking song in
Uh-oh.
school, right?
Oh no.
About sailors.
Uh-huh.
And I can't remember what context this was in, but it was definitely in junior school, and it went something like, "All the nice girls love a sailor. All the nice girls love a tar. But there's something about a sailor. Well, you know what sailors are. Bright and breezy, free and easy. They're the ladies' pride and joy." And I can't remember when I would sing that song, but they were talking about fucking sailors, weren't they? That's what that song was all about.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and I'm sure
Hmm.
that that's like probably like a World War II or that kind of
Yes,
thing
it
era,
was. It
not
was. It was
about
a war song.
natives, but for sure that's like a sly little song about the sailors coming ashore and taking advantage of their shore leave.
Ah, yeah, interesting. Thank you. Okay,
What
sorry,
age
I
is
digress.
junior school?
Junior school. You would leave junior school in year six, so 11, up to 11.
Amazing. Just little kids
Yeah,
out there singing about sailor sex.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Incredible
Definitely.
stuff.
Cool.
Anyway, Anyway, you slice it. These sailors were traveling all over the world, hitting it left and right, and they were all carrying the junk gunk.
Yeah.
And Captain Cook would go to great lengths to try to keep dudes away from native women wherever they went, specifically because he thought it was cruel to give unsuspecting people painful, lifelong infections in the name of a good time.
And where was contraceptive science at this
That I don't know. I did think about that, but wherever it was, certainly these guys weren't using anything.
hacking?
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think I remember there was a video on YouTube that I watched like a decade ago talking about contraceptive science and things like that. And like, things like sheepskin condoms and stuff like
Yes.
that have been around for,
Prophylactics.
right,
Yep,
they've been
yep,
around
yep.
for like centuries. So
Sure,
technically, this kind of stuff existed, but it's not like they were supplying them with a whole bunch of them when they left for sea. Which
sure.
they probably do now. I bet you anything that like,
Yeah.
even though they're discouraged from having sex while on duty, I'm sure that there are probably prophylactics
Yes.
available
Kitted
to a
out. Yes.
modern sailor. Um, but even the crew kind of understood. The book talks of one occasion in which they very clearly did spread some sort of terrible disease to the people they encountered, and the crew were absolutely horrified watching them suffer from something that they could not have possibly understood, but which the sailors knew they could pass on. This is a total aside, though, because that's not even the disease I want to talk about in this.
I
I
see.
thought that was fascinating that,
Well, I
for
was
yeah.
busily in the background here putting two and two together and wondering, was Captain Cook's rage syphilitic in nature?
No, from all accounts except one,
Yeah,
he never partook. He
very
was
well.
like this guy was so straight and narrow. He like didn't really drink, didn't like go party with the natives. Like he would go to things he was invited to and stuff like that, but he was not like pretty much every sailor said he never slept with anybody except on one voyage that they say that there are various accounts that say that so this one girl stayed with him overnight, and that's the only time this
I
is
see.
ever recorded. So it is
Did he
unlikely that it's
did he have like a
STDs.
steady partner back home?
Yeah, he had a wife and like four kids, something like that.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
who he did not see much of because
No, of
he was
course.
out at sea, but yeah, he wasn't out there philandering. He was,
Hmm.
just it seems like he didn't have those kinds like he was very single-minded with things. Like
Yeah.
exploration
His
was
his
his
mistress was
bag.
the sea.
Right. And he didn't want to exploit people.
Right.
So, I think that he refrained for those reasons.
His
Um
mistress was the sea.
his mistress was absolutely the same. What a nerd. Uh but yeah, for some major flaws, especially on his final journey, it's very interesting that he was like, guys, just like please don't give the natives
Come
gonorrhea.
on.
And it's been said that James Kirk was based on Captain Cook, and in a way you can kind
Yep.
of see that he had like a prime directive sort of thing going on. Don't Christianize the natives, don't tell them
Yep.
what to do, don't interfere with their societies, and hey, don't give them the clap. Like that
Now,
was his whole
James
thing.
Kirk's mistress was space, and
Yes.
his
And
mistresses.
also mistresses. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, but he never settled down, so he
There you
could
go.
he could do what he wants.
Mm.
But another thing that came up in the book was that Captain Cook sort of accidentally cured the absolute scourge of the sea, scurvy.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Do you know much about scurvy, Mark?
Right. So, vitamin deficiency
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and causes weakening of connective tissues, weakening of your soft tissues like your gums and your palate.
Yeah.
Lots of bleeding, lots of just turns you to mush, basically turns your innards to liquid.
Yeah, we'll get to some very graphic descriptions of that. But yeah,
I
that's
was
the
hoping we would.
basic
Yeah.
idea here. And because Captain Cook didn't like cure it on purpose and didn't all the way cure it, but it wasn't really repeatable. In fact, and this is wild, we didn't fully know how to prevent scurvy until the 1920s. We're talking
It's a
about
great
Cook
name,
in
isn't it? It's a
this
great name for a disease.
scurvy. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, and the word for people having scurvy is very
Oh,
good
let me
too.
guess.
It'll come in here, but
Does it have scurv in the name?
no, not quite.
Okay, no, I no clue then.
Okay, we'll get there. I'll point it out. But yes, this disease was an unfathomably huge problem. According to National Geographic, more than 3 times as many sailors died of scurvy in the age of exploration than died in the American Civil War, which famously killed off 8% of all white men in the United States between the ages of 13 and 43. 2% of our entire population died during the Civil War, and this scurvy killed 3 times as many people as
Christ.
that. Some
Christ.
2 million people died of scurvy. According to Atlas Obscura, some people told tales of Spanish galleons, quote, found floating, staffed only by the dead.
Good God.
Is
Well,
yeah.
look, that makes perfect sense to me because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are the kind of long-lasting, long-life foods that you're gonna have on a boat? You're gonna have cured meats.
Yeah, well, we'll get to this.
Sure.
So scurvy was just one of several nutritional deficiencies sailors would get as a result of the fact that they lived on preserved food.
Mm,
I don't know if this is still the case, but I don't think it is. But at the time, preserved food had no vitamins in it.
mm.
So they would get a disease called beriberi from a
Berry
lack
berry,
of,
another one of my favorites.
oh,
Yes.
nice. Yeah, from a
Yeah,
lack
yeah,
of
yeah.
vitamin B1, pellagra from vitamin B3 deficiency, and
Yeah.
scurvy, which, as we now know, is because they were missing out on vitamin C.
Rickets, yeah.
Possibly? I'm not entirely sure.
Rickets, I imagine rickets was probably
Yeah,
big too.
probably. But we don't hear a lot about beriberi or pellagra because scurvy was so horrendous, but they're no walk in the park either. One of the symptoms of beriberi was fluid buildup in the legs, which sounds miserable, and both both
Fat
beriberi and
legs.
fat legs, fat watery legs, and both beriberi and pellagra could cause mental instability and personality changes, which
Ah,
is a frightening
hello.
thought. Heyo. Much like how we discussed that people thought lead might have screwed with people's brains on the Franklin expedition,
Yeah.
it's terrifying to imagine people in close quarters with each other losing their minds due to some form of toxin or nutritional deficiency.
Journal entry
And
612. My legs have become watery. I fear I've succumbed to beriberi.
uh, rough stuff. But in
Mm,
fact, as I think you gleaned, Captain Cook, like I said, was said to have been hugely out of character on his final voyage.
yeah.
And apparently it has been suggested that he could have been suffering from pellagra, which
Ah,
would have caused that kind of weird 180 in the guy that he'd been for all these years. But there was no maybe about it when someone had scurvy. You knew, even though many people tried to hide that they were afflicted with it. I'm going to read you the description of scurvy's effects that Jonathan Lamb, author of Scurvy, the Disease of Discovery, gave in an interview with National Geographic. You ready?
and this was a book or an article?
So this came from an interview with the author of the book.
Great. Okay. You wrote a book just about scurvy.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's plenty to
Scurvologist.
learn about it. This is definitely on my maritime history books to read list.
Oh, for sure.
But here's his description of scurvy. The main physical symptom of scurvy is the disintegration of the body. The skin begins to break. It starts with little blood blisters and develops into full-scale ulcers. The gums begin to putrefy and become black.
Yes.
This part really gets me. Bones that had previously broken re-break.
Yes.
Old wounds open up. This is
Yes. That
because
that is collagen.
one of the
Mm.
major effects of scurvy is that the body can no longer produce collagen, the
Mm.
glue of the body's cells. The cartilage, especially around the thorax, begins to disappear. That's why people who had scurvy creaked and rattled.
The
That was on the
thorax. That's your.
thorax. Isn't
Where's
that
that? That's
like
your kind of
your, I think it's, yeah,
midsection.
your midsection, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like your chest section. I'm
Yeah.
thinking of when we were like, in school and learning the anatomy of bugs. There's like the
Yes.
little
The
song,
thorax.
head, thorax, abdomen, abdomen, head, thorax, abdomen. And so I was just singing that to myself in my head. So I think it's like your chest cavity-ish area. Um, so that was on the outside in terms of the body scaffold. In terms of the inside, the hydraulics, what happened was that the arteries and capillaries began to decay. Blood began to leak into the muscle and coagulated inside arteries, causing terrible cardiovascular damage. The effect of this on the brain was that you could have seizures or aneurysms at any moment, which is my nightmare. But wait, there's more. Scurvy
Yeah.
also wreaks havoc on the mind. Quote, the psychological facts were caused by the disintegration of the nervous structure of the brain. The function of vitamin C is to scavenge free radicals, which are what you could call the waste matter of neuronal activity in the brain, which causes
Mm.
oxidation. Oxidative stress occurs when there isn't enough vitamin C to get rid of the free radicals, which are in effect blocking the synapses, destroying the effectiveness of the neurotransmitters, or causing them to operate in intermittent and explosive ways. And when the neurotransmitters serotonin and dopamine don't function properly, the brain starts producing hallucinations. Dreams become very vivid, and what these dreams produce is an image so exact and brilliant of what the body needs, namely food. When you wake up or when the hallucination disappears and you find that the food is not there, you are totally devastated.
It's
Thomas
wild.
Willis, an expert on scurvy in the 17th century, called it a falling down of the whole soul. There are numerous accounts of hardened naval officers just sitting down and crying because the food they expected to find wasn't
Because they
there.
dreamed of a nice pile of oranges.
Well, not oranges because they didn't know that did anything.
Got
They
you. Yeah.
just food. They just wanted
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
And it wasn't there, and so it would cause them breakdowns, which is relatable. I I would have a breakdown if I was dreaming of food and it was not available to
Well,
me.
yeah. Particularly if my fucking thorax was creaking and my
Right,
gums had
exactly.
liquefied.
An account from 1217 during the Crusades in Egypt described, quote, soldiers with violent pains in the feet and ankles. Their gums became swollen, their teeth loose and useless, while their hips and shin bones first turned black and putrefied. Finally, an easy and peaceful death, like a gentle sleep, put an end to their suffering. And I think you'll love this description Jonathan Lamb gives of a scene from the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. As soon as I read this, I was like, I think Mark might actually, if you could recover, I think you would want scurvy
Just to have,
just to experience this.
yeah.
So, quote, the highlight for me is a scene in The Ancient Mariner where the Ancient Mariner is looking over the side of the ship and sees water snakes. He can't believe how repulsive they are. Oh Christ, that this should be, for things with slimy legs did walk upon a slimy sea, he says. He's paralyzed with horror. Yet a couple stanzas later, he's looking at the same water snakes and thinking they are marvelous creatures, shedding elfin foam as they fight in the water. His heart goes out to them. He loves them. This alternation between horror and delight is typical of scurvy, and it's what seems to organize the literature of scurvy. You're in a terrible state of privation, ignorance, and smell when suddenly something happens to pull you out of it. That's usually the arrival of food or liquid in some form, and all of your joys come together in one ecstatic blast. He goes on to explain that the other side of the coin, though, is the profound isolation scurvy causes one to feel, despite
Yeah.
obviously being surrounded by others. Journals showed that sailors felt profoundly alone through their afflictions and were lost for a way to explain the feelings to others. Reading all of that, I was
Well,
like,
yeah.
oh yeah,
I mean,
Mark would love to have
yes.
this if he could get over it.
I I wonder, I would enjoy it if there was perhaps a synthetic kind of way of inducing scurvy symptoms for like an
Right,
hour.
without
Yeah.
putrefying from the inside
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But you're right. I do love that. You know how much of a boner I've got for this crazy interplay of the body and the mind.
Yeah,
How,
absolutely.
the fucking bonkers shit that it can convince you is going on, as a symptom of a physical ailment. Whoa. Yeah,
Yeah.
all over
And
that.
these
Love it,
like
love it, love it.
extremes here of like just
Yes.
like the worst kinds of like pain and loneliness and isolation, then to this extreme, ecstatic blast, as he calls it.
Yes.
Like,
I wonder
it's
what
so
have there ever been
fascinating.
any depictions of scurvy in film, I wonder.
I'm sure there must be. I've watched fewer, I mean, I've watched plenty of sea movies, but fewer than you would think. I don't
Mm,
know though. I'm because I feel like it's so horrifying that the sort of
mm.
swashbucklers from like the early and mid 20th century would not have approached
Yeah.
this at all.
Was it in the Terror, maybe? Was it in that
I'm
first
sure it
season of the
must. I didn't
Terror?
watch it,
Somebody
so
must have come down with
yeah.
scurvy in it. Why didn't you watch that again? Surely that would have been right up your street.
Yeah, I started it and I was just I don't like dramas and it just kind of bored me. That
Uh,
was the issue. It's too slow. And I talked about this in the episode where we talked about Franklin's expedition too. I read the book and I didn't like that either. And it was 900 pages long. I read that whole thing. I was like, God, I hate this.
huh.
The real
That's
story is interesting enough. without
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough.
fictionalizing all of that. Um, so yeah,
And I'm right in saying that nobody had any idea even why this was fucking happening to them.
right. Like, I mean, they had theories, and I'll get into that in a second, but this was the issue, was that like no one was pinpointing what exactly it was that
Yeah.
was causing this. So they tried all kinds of different things, and I will get into that. But all of that, happening, no one was spared. Whether you were the lowliest crewman on the ship or an esteemed and famous explorer like Vasco da Gama, who died from scurvy.
Mm.
So, given that this is a disease that ravages pretty much every system you've got going on in your body, and it was a constant presence for seafarers for centuries, everyone was desperate to figure out what they could do to eradicate it. But frankly, as you were just alluding to, they had no clue what they were doing. For
I feel
example,
as though they could fucking work it out though. For fuck's
well,
sake, lads. You're all on,
this is, oh, they get
you're all on a
so
boat for
close.
months on end, eating nothing but fucking
Right.
pickled cow's
But
foot.
we've talked recently as well about like the fact that the field of medicine is 100 years
Mm.
old. It's not something that
That's a great
really
point. Yes,
existed.
yes. Another word for
So
cow's foot is hoof, isn't it? So
what?
rather than going with pickled cow's foot, I like had my time again, I would have said hooves.
Okay.
But yes, yes.
Sure. What are we talking about? Distracted by the
Field
hoof.
of
Oh, so they would kind of be so close, as I will discuss, but they'd be like on the cusp, but just interpret something slightly wrong and fuck it up.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, so one of the things people thought was that the smell of the earth and the feeling of
Oh,
being on land
no,
could help with
lads.
scurvy. This is not one of their closer guesses, according to Joyce Chaplin. And thus they would do a thing called earth bathing, where they would literally ship
Oh,
dirt from England out on the boats. And when someone was getting all scorbutic,
nice. Oh,
they
is that
would put, that's the word, for
scorbutic?
having, if you have scurvy, you're scorbutic.
All
I
right.
like it.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
they would put them in the dirt box and cover them in it.
Uh,
As you can imagine, it did not work. That's far more effective for transporting Draculas across the sea than solving
That's the
scurvy.
only way that putting you in the
Only,
dirt
yeah,
box. That's the only thing it's useful for, isn't it?
only thing it's good for.
Shipping Draculas.
Another thing they thought caused scurvy was physical misery. And trying to
Huh?
avoid that is actually how Captain Cook unintentionally minimized it on his voyages. He kept his ships clean, warm, and dry, and as often as possible would go ashore and buy fresh fruit, vegetables, meat, and fish from the natives on the islands they came upon. So reducing physical misery meant that he was actually getting his sailors the vitamins they
Of
needed to
course.
prevent disease-causing nutritional deficiencies. They're obviously going to be happier if they're eating fresh food than if
Yep.
they're eating hardtack. So Chaplin points out that that didn't mean that there was no scurvy on his ships. A lot of times people report that they're like, "Oh, he eradicated it. There wasn't any on his ships." There was,
No.
apparently, especially on his second voyage. Um, and in fact, Cook subscribed to the theory that something called maltwort might be a scurvy preventative. A man named Dr. David McBride had theorized that it was not citrus, but concentrated malt that would keep people from getting the disease, basically getting it completely wrong. So Cook was giving his men this malt that did absolutely fuck all to stifle the disease, but because there was so little of it, they thought it was working, not realizing it was the fresh fruit and vegetables that he was getting from the natives that was
Malt.
doing this. Malt. Uh, and so not only was he
That's
wrong,
really funny to me.
well,
Like he's got an
unfortunately,
orange in one hand. He's got like a
yeah,
sheaf of malt in the other.
like
I'll
this
give
is the
him this.
one. This is what's
So
doing it.
close. So goddamn
Uh,
close.
yeah. So, while some people attribute finding a cure for scurvy to Cook, he not only just happened to be
Yeah.
giving his sailor stuff that minimized it. That he didn't know that he was doing it meant that he also ended up spreading misinformation about what did solve scurvy, ultimately impeding progress and stopping it, because everybody was like, oh, Captain Cook is using malt and his guys aren't getting the scurvs, so
Mm.
that must be doing it.
What were they called?
I lost it again. Scorb. It'll come up again.
Yeah.
Anyways, so because there were oh, sorry, I lost my place here. But what did so ultimately okay. There were those who thought citrus had something to do with solving scurvy, or at least some kind of acid did. In 1593, Admiral Richard Hawkins was recommending that sailors get some citrus in them. 1593. In 1614, the East India Company said sailors should have fresh food, citrus, and sulfuric acid to stave off scurvy.
All right.
Yeah,
I mean,
again,
it'll
they're
probably
just
lead to
like,
its own issues.
right, yeah, but they're getting that something is happening here.
Yes. Yes.
And they're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. In 1747, a Scottish physician named James Lind tested various cures on scorbutic sailors, including cider, sulfuric acid, vinegar, seawater, oranges and lemons, and spices and barley water.
And they would ingest the sulfuric acid, yes.
Yes. Yeah, not like shoot it
Is
up or
that
anything. They would ingest it.
surely that's bad for you in itself? That's not going to.
Guess it probably depends on the dose, right? Dose makes the
Hmm.
poison. I don't know enough about
All right.
sulfuric acid to tell you that one way or another, but
Hmm.
I wouldn't want to be ingesting it for various reasons. Um, but during the tests, they ran out of fruit in 6 days, but the results were already crystal clear. The oranges and lemons were far more effective than any of the other cures. He published those findings in 1753, but they didn't grab hold just yet. It was in 1794 that the Suffolk officially doled out rations of lemon juice to its crew. And lo and behold, zero scurvy.
Excellent.
So I'm sure you're thinking, but Corrigan, that was 1794. And you said they didn't officially find the cure for scurvy till the 20th century.
I was thinking that.
Sounds like you've scotched yourself, Corrigan. Alas, while the
Scotched yourself
Brits
into a corner, into a robotic corner.
while the Brits had finally found a cure, they then proceeded to unfind it. As I'm sure you know, a nickname for Brits is
Limeys.
limeys. Exactly.
Ah,
Yeah, a thing I imagine most folks who use it have no idea where it came from. Did you?
none at all.
None at all. Well,
Listen, is that still common parlance then?
limeys?
Yeah.
I mean, common parlance in like a joking way. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
people
sure, sure,
would
sure.
like we know that like I think any American would know you'd be like, "Oh, those limey bastards" or whatever. But like
Oh,
I don't I don't think anyone like genuinely has any clue where it comes from or would use it in a serious way. No, it'd be like fucking
okay.
limeys.
Yeah, I mean, because the closest equivalent I can think of is Yanks. We would call
Right.
Americans Yanks,
Yeah,
but I
totally.
think
But
that's
like
still quite
why?
common.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
true. A lot of Brits do call us Yanks. I don't think a lot of Americans in like a normal way would call a Brit a limey. Because it is derogatory, right? Like
Yeah, sure.
it's not a cute little thing to call someone.
No, I'd
Which
best
like
not fucking
Yank
hear it
isn't
when I'm out there because I'll start swinging.
should be hilarious to see. But yeah, I mean, Yank obviously is not a positive thing either, but I don't
Not
think
at
it
all.
carries the venom at this point
Hmm.
that it may have at another point in time. But yeah, it came from the Brits substituting limes for lemons and oranges as a scurvy countermeasure. Limes are not as effective as oranges and lemons when it comes to curing or preventing scurvy. And on top of that, they then boiled the limes in copper vessels, which pretty much drained all of the vitamin C out of them. Since the sailors started getting scurvy again, everyone was like, you know what? Maybe the citrus thing doesn't work after all. So
Shit.
the practice fell out of favor as a result of that. Luckily, though,
Look,
yeah.
talk about giving me just fucking knowledge that I'm never ever gonna use ever. Thank you so much.
I don't
But I
know.
mean,
Somebody at some point is going to use the word limey, and you're going to be able to be like, you know where
that's
that
true.
fucking comes from?
Yeah, you watch your fucking mouth. Let me tell you about something, and then I'll proceed to get the entire story
Right.
wrong. Just
Sure.
forget.
Yep. Yeah.
Mm.
So the TLDR is, the Brits figured out a cure for scurvy, and then went on to use limes because it was cheaper, and then boiled them, and thus made it completely useless in fighting scurvy. And so luckily at this point, steam engines had become a thing. So people were rarely going on voyages that lasted for over 6 weeks, and scurvy tends to like
Yes.
hit around six
Yep.
weeks. So if you are out, like, I mean, if I didn't eat anything with vitamin C in it for a couple weeks, like I'd probably be a little weak, but I'd be fine. And so yeah, people were okay going out like that. Aside, of course, from our friends like Franklin and Scott on expeditions to reach the poles. As we know, the Terror and the Erebus were out there for 3 years before Lady Franklin was like, hey guys, I think my husband's lost. Can we go find him? Or and scurvy is one of the likely causes for the demise of most of the people on board those ships.
Well, you might reasonably like to think that scurvy was, completely a thing of the past, but
I'm getting there. Don't get ahead of me.
sorry.
Stop Googling while I'm talking.
I'm not, but right, you've kind of surfaced something that I remember reading a while back in the press over here that, Victorian era maritime diseases were very much alive and well
Right,
in
yep.
Britain in 2024, which is
Yeah, there's various reasons why all kinds of old diseases are back. The reason for scurvy is probably the most depressing of
mm,
them. But I will get there.
yes.
Um, but yeah, so these polar expeditions were undertaken with tinned food, pemmican, hardtack, tea, and whiskey. If I were
Pemmican, what is that?
pemmican, it is a mix of tallow, dried meat, and berries.
It's nice. Okay.
Yeah, sounds horrible.
It
Uh,
sounds like I'd put it in like a bird feeder.
right, yeah. I mean, it kind of looks like that too, with like just like a
Mm,
puck of
yeah.
like who knows what. That yeah,
Uh,
mystery meat and berries. Blech. No, thank you. Um, but anyways, so and if I recall correctly, also like a shit ton of pickles in the
okay.
case of Franklin's expedition, just like an unhinged amount of pickles on that voyage. And none of this stuff prevented scurvy. And these 19th century sailors were getting struck down by a disease that should have been eradicated by the end of the 18th if it weren't for the Brits being cheap about fruit. So people continued to die from scurvy until 1927, when a Hungarian biochemist named Szent György figured out it was ascorbic acid, aka vitamin C, that
Yeah, yeah.
prevented the disease. As a result, we've almost gotten rid of scurvy altogether. Except, of course, that the world is terrible.
Mm.
And in places like America's inner cities or developing nations, poor children in particular still get it from lack of access to proper nutrition. And because it is so rare, it's often mistaken for something else because who the fuck gets scurvy in the 21st century? So often those problems are not addressed because when doctors look at them, they're like, I don't know why this is happening. It's because these kids aren't getting enough food. That's why. But if we put the effort in to make sure every child everywhere has access to nutritious food, dear Marko, we will likely see the backside of the scurvy scourge forever. And what's more, those pioneering studies in vitamin C that caused us to find this solution are actually being built upon today, and we're still finding new things that ascorbic acid can cure.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind
Very
of a
cool.
nice little silver lining. Took centuries to figure out that you just needed to eat a fucking orange, but now you can like cure certain elements of diabetes and stuff with it.
Well, as I think we've spoke on before, that's just one more indicator of how fucking wrong we have it, isn't it? You know, of just how heinously fucking ass backwards we have things at the minute.
Hmm.
You know, in a world where everything you need is, given to you,
Right.
readily available. And I'm not being like, hey, let's just get back to nature and fucking,
Right.
weave a yurt and fucking cultivate yogurt and shit.
Sure.
That's not what I'm saying at all. But, you know, scurvy and diabetes and such like are still rampant.
Right.
All you got to do is just eat what's around, what's there. But
Yeah,
money.
exactly. Right. And living in a food desert myself,
Mm,
you become very aware of how difficult it can be for people to get stuff like that. Everyone's
mm,
like, "Oh, people need to put down the McDonald's and blah blah blah." But like, there's closer fast food to me than there is a grocery store.
yes.
And the inflation or greedflation on groceries has gone super high up. So you see like returns to stuff like this happening, simply because yeah, we don't have access to that kind of stuff. And there are places that like actively plant things like edible fruit trees and stuff like that outside so that people can like pick them as they walk through.
Yeah.
Which is, the kind of thing I think, like you said, not to be all get back to nature or whatever, but there are things that can be provided for us without it being like expensive to do.
Completely. I mean, super recently, like just before we went on halls, like a week before last, Laura and the boys and I were out walking, which we do, and we came across a lady picking berries, right?
Was it Alicia
Picking berries.
Silverstone?
It was not Alicia Silverstone.
Okay.
Why would it be?
Oh, that's Richard sent
Oh,
us a
right.
thing in
Yeah. Okay.
our
Fine. Fine.
group
Fine.
chat.
Yes. Where
Yeah.
she just
For
ate
those who
some shit
didn't
off a
know,
tree.
Alicia Silverstone ate like a mildly poisonous fruit off of somebody's tree in England.
No, it wasn't her. Um, but she's picking berries, picking blackberries or gooseberries or whatever it was, putting them in a bag. She obviously had designs on making some sort of tart or pie.
Right.
And the boys were stunned by this,
Uh-huh.
like blown away. Like, the
Right.
fuck?
Like, whoa, hold
Did she
on, you
not
can
have
do
any?
that?
Yeah, did she not have any food at home? You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Right.
Um, yeah, mad shit. And look,
There's been a comeback of foraging these days, people going out and learning what you can go and eat just around.
yes, but it's yeah. All this does is just reinforces to me how fucking wrong what we're doing currently is, the way we live currently is. Uh, and again, you know, not to want to plow this fucking same old furrow that I've plowed time and time again, right? But again, the week before I left, there was news of this fucking properly, for the first time, groundbreaking Alzheimer's drug, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which has had kind of approval for use in the medically here in the UK. It's got side effects and it's expensive and it requires like fortnightly infusions, but
Right.
it's not being offered at all on the NHS because it costs too goddamn much.
Right.
And it
Yep.
can, it can slow the onset of Alzheimer's and extend life, improve the quality of life for people who get it diagnosed early enough.
Yeah.
Um, just today, I was listening to a phone in on Radio 4, and the topic was energy,
Mm.
and about how, you know, the most common reason given for not pivoting nationally towards wind, towards nuclear, towards forms of energy which might have a chance of making a dent or changing the course that we're on by a couple of degrees is the cost. It costs too
Right.
goddamn much to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucking mad.
Yeah. How do we have prices on our ability to live?
Yes,
Like
yes, yes,
the
yes.
world is dying. How is that less expensive than
Yeah, yeah.
solar panels on shit? Come
Yes,
on.
and it is cheaper to buy huge bags of frozen shite to feed your
Mm.
family with
Right.
than it is to give them something which will prevent scurvy.
Exactly. Fucking hell. Get it together.
All
World.
fucked up. All fucked up.
Fubar. Oh my gosh. You okay there?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Well, I'm not actually.
Ooh, okay.
Right? I'm beaten up. Lovely to
You
be
are a little
back.
beaten up. Yeah.
I've do you have the phrase, oh, you've been in the wars in the States?
In the wars. No, I don't
No?
think so. I've never heard that one.
So let's say maybe your kid is off school and they've got a tummy ache, or they've kind of, oh, they're nursing like a broken arm or something. Oh,
Uh-huh.
someone's been in the wars. That's something that a parent or a grandparent would say
You
to a
guys are
kid.
real weird about the wars. Let's be real.
Ah. Yeah, that's true. Still. But
Still,
yes, I've
very
been in the
much
wars.
so.
But
Wearing your little flowers around and whatnot.
oh yeah, well, I will talk about next Independence Day. No, sorry, next Remembrance Day. We'll talk about that.
Mm.
We'll talk about the fucking poppy fuckers.
But yes,
But
you've
it's
been in the wars.
lovely to be back. But I'll
Yes.
I'll first just say that it is great to be back, and I want to thank Anne and Steve for what I assume was a great episode last week.
You should watch it. It was a really good one. We had a really good
Nope,
time.
but I don't need to
You're not even
because I
on
know
it.
that it would because I know that it was excellent. There'll be no surprises there for me because I know that it'll be a high quality installment of
When you
Jack
come
O'Lakes
around
Graves.
and tell their cold open in 3 weeks, I'm going to be very upset with you for not having watched it.
Let me see. What was I about to say?
Your wars.
Yeah, a lovely holiday. Thank you. A lovely holiday. Um, but I am. It doesn't ruin international travel for me, right? Doesn't ruin it because the experience of going abroad with family and taking in a new land is always wonderful. I love it so goddamn much.
Hmm.
But it's 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 become depressingly frequent that not only will I get fucking mangled by mosquitoes,
Yep. Hmm.
my body will always react really violently to them. It isn't the bites that get me
Yeah.
in such distress. It's how my body reacts. My fucking histamine response goes absolutely batshit. And you can't see on my webcam right now, but my webcam. uh, but if
You
I were to
can't
get my
see me in
legs out
cyberspace right now,
on
but
my webcam, uh, but if I were to show you my legs right now, you'd go like that because just like not even like mildly raised like you might think a mosquito bite would be, but like a hillock of just
gross.
tight, hot, kind of with like this red corona extending around the outside of the
Mm.
bite, and it's fucking itching and burning like hell. And it isn't just the itch; it burns in my skin. It
Oh God.
burns. Oh man, it's horrible. But the
I
holiday was
really
lovely.
hope
Bulgaria was lovely.
that I really hope that mosquito season is over by the time that you get here so that you don't go through this
I'm
again
dreading it because
in three
you've told
weeks.
me that you've got lots in your garden, haven't you?
Yes. Oh yeah, big time. We have a ton of spray,
Yeah.
to try to keep them away. And they should be, as long as it cools down, they should be gone. But I am very concerned that you're going to come on another holiday and then just end up eaten up again.
How hot is it currently? Because we've got 3 weeks to go. 3 weeks to go.
Three
How
weeks to
long?
go.
How hot is it currently?
It's only 78 today. It's not that bad.
Right. And what is that in an actual
Oh.
temperature figure that I can understand?
Yeah, I'm out of
78
practice trying to translate
Fahrenheit
those
to
over.
Celsius. Let's try that. 25. Oh, that's fine. That's cooler than it is
Right.
here.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's kind of been back and forth or whatever, but I feel like we're going into fall, hopefully. So if that's the case, normally the end of September is like low 70s and it's like really beautiful. So
That's
crossing the
fucking perfect.
fingers. Yeah.
Today's been 26 and 78 is 25.5. So right now between
Oh
us,
yeah,
it's
we're
exactly the same temperature, pretty
yeah.
much.
That's kind of
Yep.
fun.
It is. It's
Uh
really cool. And if it's going to get cooler, then I am all for that.
yeah, and if it gets cooler, the mosquitoes won't come out. So
No, they won't.
we'll see how it
And
goes.
add on to all that, the literally the morning after I got back, I went back to the fucking eye doctor to get another pustule. Yeah,
Ugh.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what it is. It's a pustule. You just got like a little nubbin full of pus in your eyeball.
No, it's on my eyelid. And pustule is a bit of a grimmer term than I think it deserves. It's not really
Okay.
grim at all. You can't really see anything. But it's the second one I've had removed. A motherfucker, this one hurt like a some bitch.
Ugh.
The last one was tame compared to this. The doctor went fucking. The guy was a sadist. Um,
It's like
uh,
the dentist in Little Shop of
exact,
Horrors.
exactly. Only I was not Bill Murray. I was getting nothing from the transaction at all. Uh, but it's done. I've got a lovely kind of shiner. I've got a lovely bit of bruising around the eyelid, a lovely black eye. So that's really cool. So that hurts, and my skin is burning and itching. But at least I don't have scurvy. I have ready access
Well,
to
that's
fruit
good.
juices of all
Love
kinds.
that.
So that's one thing I don't got.
They when they did this little procedure on your
Mm,
eye,
mm.
like what do they do? Like, is your eye open?
Right. Would
How
you like
does
me to
this
talk you through
work?
it?
I would
I'm
love to hear how
sensing you'd
this
like a
went.
walkthrough.
You see the curiosity
Yeah. All
on
right. So
this.
I went in, chatted to the consultant, a lovely guy, um, who
I
asked me some
do want you to
questions.
stop touching it though.
Okay. What I'm doing, I'm because you can palpate it readily and you can feel that it's under the skin, and I'm just making sure that he's got it all. So I went in and talked to the guy, and he very helpfully kind of drew around it, so he knew
Hmm.
where to aim for. Walks me into the nurse's office where they assist. Lies me down on the little gurney, I guess you'd say.
Uh-huh. Sure. I don't know
Shines,
if that's what I
shine.
always think of a gurney as like something more emergency, but yeah, like the
Yeah,
little bed,
little bit exactly, little bed.
operating table. I don't
Let's go with that. Okay, and injected me three fucking times in the lower eyelid, like with lidocaine, I believe.
know. Okay, lidocaine.
Like injected my fucking eyelid, man.
Weird.
Horrible.
Could you, when
Uh,
you like once they injected you with all that, could you like move it at all, or was it like now you have no control over the
it seemed
eyelid?
to do nothing.
Oh,
Nothing. It
interesting.
had no effect. I could feel everything.
Oh,
What he then does, you know how when you're a kid, you would sometimes try and gross your friends out by turning your eyelid inside out?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. He did that on my bottom eyelid and attached a clamp to it
Hmm.
to keep it pulled down
Yeah, kind of
and
clockwork orange.
tight
Yeah.
exactly this, the Ludovico technique to me. And screwed this clamp down super fucking tight. Like I felt like it was gonna
Oh
fucking
God.
cut my eyelid.
Ugh.
And
It's like a
then got to
saw trap.
work. Exactly. Got a little blade and chatting to me throughout the entire thing. And I could feel him cutting the inside of my eyelid. Uh, talking, giving me a full-on director's commentary throughout the whole thing.
Are you
Uh,
blinking with the your upper eyelid while this is happening?
I'm just desperately trying not to. Desperately
So you
trying not to.
could blink.
Yes.
Okay,
Meanwhile, my other eye is just streaming tears
sure.
down into my ear.
Oh
There's so many
no.
fucking tears coming out my
Oh,
eye that
this is
my
a
ear is
nightmare.
soaked with my own fucking, saline that I'd secreted. So he's talking to me throughout the entire thing. So, oh, a lot of discharge coming out of this one. Uh, and
Yes, yes.
no, and he then followed that up with, it's actually very satisfying.
Oh
That's
no.
what he said.
Oh
That's what he said. That's what he said. I was like, ha, ha, ha. Okay.
no.
Um,
Oh Christ.
cleaned me up, patched me up, sent me on my way. But it hurt like fuck, and it's bruised, and I hate it. And the rest of me itches and burns. But all that said, right?
Uh-huh.
Not to want to complain,
Sure.
it is fucking great to be back.
Good.
Fucking great to be
Yes.
back. I
Very glad you're back.
listen. We are now in our fifth year, right? Jack of all
It's
graves
true. We're
now
just
entering
starting.
its
Yeah,
fifth
yesterday
year.
was our fourth anniversary.
Literally, technically, in our fifth year,
It's true. First
and
day of our fifth
missing.
year.
Yeah, and missing a week. It puts me at ease. I don't like it.
I know, you're supposed to be here.
Exactly.
Well, I think
Uh,
everyone is happy to have you. Again, such big thanks to Anna and Steve for a wonderful episode last
they're
week in which
great.
we discussed butt stabbing and other such things, cryptids, and
Aren't they great?
they're so great. They're so much fun.
Yeah.
And we're so excited to get to see them again in just 3.5 weeks
Mhm.
here in my home. It's going to be
Nice.
such a good time. And
In your home with your dog. Is Keo gonna
with
be
my
there?
dog. Yeah, Keo will be here as well.
Yay!
Uh, he's considering the Saturday staying home with the dog, but he will be partying with us Friday at least.
Wicked.
Um,
Really good news.
yeah, so if you're still thinking about it, if you're in the area or things like that, make sure to go on our Discord and I will send you an info packet about it. It's going to be a good turnout. I'm
Whether you
stoked
fucking
to
want it
see
or not,
everybody.
read the packet
Yeah, just
because she
read the
gets
goddamn packet.
super spiky at people who don't read the packet after
Just
like the
you
third or
only.
fourth time of asking. You read the
It's
packet,
not that you know
Mark.
from
Just say
experience.
that. Uh, so we've just had our fourth birthday. If
Yeah.
Joag was a human child, would you like to know what it would be capable of doing right now?
Ooh, yes, please.
All right. So happy birthday, baby Joag. You are 4. Were you a human child, you would be able to show sympathy to friends when hurt or upset.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it takes till
Um,
you're 4? Jeez.
yeah. Well, that's what you should be doing at the time that you're 4. You would be able to recognize big and small items, Joag.
Okay.
You'd be able to you'd
I
be
feel
able to understand
confident we can do that.
instructions such as go and get your shoes.
Nice.
Yeah.
These are like what's really surprising about this is that it takes kids that long to figure any of that out. Like I feel like my
Yeah.
dog is like this close to learning how to do all of those things.
Hmm. Uh, let me see what else. Sit still or listen to a story for 5 to 10 minutes and name 5 different colors.
At age 4,
Yeah.
5 colors.
If you I'd say 5 colors at least.
Geez, Louise. Okay. I'm
So
gonna
if you can't
accept it.
name 5 different colors by the time you're 4,
Okay,
uh,
then that might be an issue, a
vitamin
developmental issue.
C.
Vitamin
Yes.
C, exactly. Well, interesting. Listen, I think we've passed the 4-year test, and I'm very happy about it. As you put out our COVID distraction that just kept going. Um,
Yeah.
and so happy that we're here. And I mean, 4 years in,
Yeah.
you're coming to America. That's pretty
It's a
wild.
well, talk about a milestone. That's a developmental
It's a
milestone right
huge
there.
milestone.
And in
So
the
yeah.
background, just worth mentioning by the side, I've got another New York movie on in the background.
Ooh, what is it?
Uh, uh, Sony's Madame Web,
Oh God.
right?
That movie
And
doesn't even take place on this planet, let alone New
fucking
York.
hell, even though I don't need the sound on to figure out that it's a fucking massive piece of shit. Why is the
Have you
color
not
the way it
watched
is?
it?
Why is it? Nah, why would I? But why is it? Why is the color grade like that? Why
I
does it
don't
look the way it
know.
does?
I don't know. It's the whole thing. Every decision is baffling. The thing that I just want you to see in this movie, like it is just shit from beginning to end. But the craziest thing about this movie is the villain who
Mm,
they clearly decided to completely get rid of whatever
mm,
storyline they had for him and
mm.
redo it after the movie was already done. And so you never see like him head on talking because all of his lines are ADR.
That's
And it is
incredible.
so bizarre to watch. Like the whole time you're like, did he speak English? Like, why
Mm,
is he dubbed this whole movie? Why do you never see like his face talking? What's going on here?
that is
It's so
incredible.
bizarre. It's so bizarre. I've
But
never
yeah,
seen anything like it.
short of any kind of audio input into the film, or I mean, just looking at it, it looks as though like somebody's put like a New York filter on it on
Yeah,
Instagram. The
right.
color is fucking awful, man. It's ugh, vile. And they were just in a taxi, and you know how, when you're filming somebody in a car, they're never on a road, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's
It's
on a
got like a
soundstage.
background.
But
Yeah.
like the car and the background are just moving independently of
Oh
one
no.
another, just like subtly. It's fucking terrible.
Oh no, that's truly horrific. Um,
Uh
yeah, Madam Web is not a movie I recommend, except that like there's a bit of a you have to see it to believe it kind of element to that movie.
uh,
Uh, but we're gonna get into what we watched today, and particularly that's gonna lead us into our discussion for this week because we had a watch along. We watched Gremlins 2. A thing that everyone requested while we watched this movie was that Mark take us through some Gremlins lore as well as like some of his theories.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Mark is a studied Gremlins fan.
I fucking love Gremlins, right? And
Yes.
I'm only ever reminded at how much I love Gremlins when I watch Gremlins. It doesn't really seep into my daily life.
It's
You
not like
know,
your personality,
no, no, not at
but
all. Not at all. In fact, I don't even own a t-shirt, and I would, thinking about it, I
oh
think
yeah,
I
you
would
should.
love a
You
Gremlins
need that
t-shirt.
one that I can't remember who it was. Was it John Benfield who posted the picture today of Robert Picardo in
Yeah.
the sexy
Yes.
gremlin shirt? I feel like you need
She is sexy.
that one. You need that
Um,
shirt in particular.
yeah, I
Um
do. But
so
whenever I
we oh go ahead.
watch either Gremlins or Gremlins 2, I'm reminded at just how much fucking just joy I get out of the creatures and their life cycle and their kind of their physiology.
Yeah.
Uh, love them, love them, love them,
Love
little
it. So
bastards.
that's what we're gonna talk about today. Once we get done talking about our watches, we're gonna get a little bit into Grem lore, and
Yes.
I'm looking forward to that. As we mentioned, this whole idea of like not making it our personality or whatever, we both, at least in our younger days, kind of did because I have an extensive Gremlins to
Yeah.
trading card collection.
Yeah.
Um,
And this was a phrase I wrote in the chat that I completed the Gremlins Panini sticker album when I was a kid, and nobody ever seems to know what that is.
no,
Panini sticker books? No?
no, I know what a sticker book is, but I don't know what a Panini sticker book is.
So Panini were, and I guess were because I don't think they exist anymore, but Panini were the eminent name in
In sticker books.
movie and sport
Oh,
tie-in sticker books.
okay.
So you would commonly get the blank sticker book for free,
Mm-hmm.
maybe with an issue of a weekly comic that you would buy, the
Sure.
Dandy or the Beano or whatever. You'd get the sticker book for free in a little polythene bag, and it would tell the story of the film over like 20, 30 pages, but with blank spaces for the for you to buy
Right.
the sticker packs at the newsagent
Mm-hmm.
for like 30, 40p or whatever that would contain 5 stickers. And you would peel them off and stick them in the book to complete the sticker album and visually tell you the story of the film, right?
Yeah, we definitely had stuff like that, but the sticker books were not free. You had to buy those
Okay.
too. You had to buy the stickers and the book.
And one of the ways that they were so that they made such a cultural impact among kids was because obviously you would then take your piles of stickers into school and trade your doubles, your
Right, to
doublers.
get, yep,
You know what I mean?
sure. Yeah.
Need it, got it, need it, got it. And you would, whether it was Gremlins or fucking Ninja Turtles or Star Wars or whatever, you would, and it was such a rare. Never, and I don't really know anybody else who ever really regularly completed Panini sticker albums because it was a lot, yeah, a lot of a big
Did you
undertaking.
complete more than that one?
Nope,
Just the one.
Gremlins was the only Panini sticker album that I ever completed start to finish,
Amazing.
and I was proud as fuck of it.
You should be. Do you still have it
Yeah.
somewhere?
No, fuck no.
Ah, that's too bad.
The only other collecting kind of thing that I finished was what were they given away with? There was a series of Ninja Turtles coins
Ooh, okay.
that you could buy and swap with your mates, and they would clip into this really nice little cardboard display sheet.
Oh,
And I
nice.
had a lot, man. I had all of them.
What did you
Oh,
get them from? Like what did they come in?
I
Or you
can't, I
bought them on
can't,
your own?
I can't recall where. I think they were just sold at the tills in
Oh,
Woolworths,
okay.
you know.
Yep,
Um, but I had all the hero turtles, sorry, as they
yep.
were.
I know, as you said ninja
Um,
like two or three times there. It's like, whoa, hold
yeah,
on.
well, they're Ninja Turtles again now. And Weary White House is
Yeah.
fucking dead. You know what I mean? We can call them ninjas now. But yes, I had all the Hero Turtles coins, and I completed the Gremlins sticker, which is to say, and of course, as you will not be shocked to hear, I read the Gremlins 2 movie tie-in novelization.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, I love and continue to love Gremlins. They're great.
Yeah. It was about time that we returned to it because we have discussed that you had this tie-in book and, you know, some of the elements of that
Mm.
on this show before, but never really deep dived into a lot of your ideas about Gremlins that I think people have wanted to hear. So I'm excited to hear a little bit about
Well,
that,
let's
and
do
we
it.
will get
And
there.
yeah, there's another angle as well with another movie that we're going to discuss
Yes.
shortly, which
Mm-hmm.
equally I adore thinking about.
Love
The
it.
which we'll reveal shortly, but there's another fictional movie monster life cycle that I'm fucking super into as well.
Yes.
Um
Yeah.
yeah,
So we
so
will.
all that to come, you lucky people.
Yeah, that's coming. Also, a thing that is coming is mail for our top tier of subscribers on the our Ko-fi. I gathered various things, little postcards and things. Like I said, I'm now sending flat things so that people don't get empty envelopes.
Uh,
Because I learned my lesson about sending things that are textured and items and stuff like that in the mail. So I'm
yep,
sending flat things now, but I collected various things in my travels through Europe a couple months ago, and so I'm excited to send those, maybe some cool facts along with them. Last month, last mailer, I did facts about the naked mole rat
beautiful. Yes, I
after
remember.
going to the um the Smithsonian National Zoo in Washington D.C. So we'll see what happens this time. I don't know, maybe some Belgium facts. uh, I don't know, but
Cool.
excited to send those out. Though, so within the next week or two, we are coming up on my birthday. So, but I don't have like a ton of plans, so I will hopefully get to it sometime very shortly. But they'll be with you this
Awesome.
month.
What other podcast sends you stuff?
I know,
None.
right?
None
Seriously.
other podcast.
Yeah, you should be subscribing to our Ko-Fi,
Do the
especially
right thing.
since
Come on.
for a measly $3 a month, you don't get mail, but you do get to listen to me scare Kristen every month on
Ooh,
the Joag Fan Cave. This month we are watching Disturbing Behavior, which I am super stoked on. I think Kristen is going to really enjoy this one, and I owe her after terrifying her with It Chapter 1 last month. I know that Anna talked on Hell Rankers about watching Disturbing Behavior for the first time in preparation for this Joag Fan Cave and really liked it. And I always love watching Disturbing Behavior. And if you haven't started it and you are subscribing, make sure that you watch it before we talk about it. And
yeah.
if
No,
you
I
want to
don't think
hear
I've
that,
seen that
subscribe.
or even heard of it. Is it
Disturbing Behavior,
good?
really? It's
Yeah,
a
no, no.
like it's late 90s or early 2000s. I want to say early 2000s um horror movie about like kind of a Stepford-ish town where like all the bad teenagers all of a sudden start coming to school and being like very perfect. And then they start sort of harassing the people who are not as perfect as them, and you
Hmm.
come to find some sort of very sinister thing that is going on under the surface that causes death and destruction and all kinds of things like
Nice.
that. And it has
What is it
basically
about
it
that movie which made you pick it for Kristen?
So I've actually picked all of the ones for the rest of the year, which I'm excited about because I love to do like thematic things. So like I
Yeah,
picked
you too.
it last month because it's like it's a summertime movie, right? And before
Yep,
that I
yep.
did I Know What You Did Last Summer because it's a 4th of July movie. And so it's back to school time, and Disturbing
Yeah.
Behavior cycles circles around high school. So I was like, let's do Disturbing Behavior for this month as our back to school watch. And I'm feeling pretty great about it.
Beautiful. I hope she is too.
Yes, I think she's gonna, because she loved I Know What You Did Last Summer. So
Mm,
I think if she loved that, she's gonna love the 2000s vibes of this. James Marsden, Katie Holmes, like
nice.
AJ Buckley, briefly Ethan Embry. Like it's a who's who of 2000s teen heartthrobs. It's a good time.
There's a career that took a odd left turn, isn't it? James Marsden, isn't
James
it?
Marsden is interesting because I mean I think he yeah, he's weird because he was in stuff like that, like kind of
Yep,
off-brand things, but he was always too handsome for that.
yep,
And then X-Men sort of made
yep,
him leading man material.
yep.
Now he's like comedy leading. Comedy, he's not really a leading, he's more of a character actor. and plays a lot of comedic roles. He's a very
Well,
handsome
he's second
character
fiddle to
actor.
animated animals now, is what he is.
What is he in with
Well,
animated
he's
animals?
Sonic's best friend,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. Yep.
and I think it's called Hop.
Oh, I've heard of that, but I have not seen it.
I have, and it's fucking terrible. I think the rabbit is James Corden or somebody fucking
Oh,
equally
yeah, that's right. Yep.
repugnant.
Hmm.
Um,
Ugh.
and when I think of James Marsden now, I don't think of Cyclops. I think of him, looking at a
Yeah,
fucking
having
tennis ball
kids
and
probably has something to do with that, but he still appears in like a lot of stuff, just pops up as like these little comedic roles in
okay,
various things. I think the thing that now I think of him, I mean, obviously I think of like Enchanted and stuff like that, but when I think of
yes,
him, I think of he's Liz Lemon's husband on 30 Rock.
right,
Uh and so I kind of think of him as Chris from 30 Rock a
I
good chunk
see.
of the time. But yeah, he's like around.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, as a parent, I can see why that is what you associate him with.
In a similar vein, an actor who lost and has now regained my love, right,
Mm.
is one Joel Kinnaman.
Oh, why was it RoboCop that lost it
It
for
was
you?
RoboCop.
Okay,
He
that makes sense.
fucked the dog with me completely when it comes to, his
Wasn't his
respect.
fault per se.
No, of all of the many things wrong with that film, he and the cast actually are not
Yeah,
the
not the
problem.
problem.
Michael fucking Keaton came out of retirement for that movie, for fuck's sake.
That's pretty wild.
Wild. But since the Suicide Squad and For All Mankind,
Oh yeah.
he's well and truly in my cool books again.
Yeah, and I think I told you in like a group chat or whatever that I can confirm from Cynthia that he's also like a super stand-up cool guy as well. So you
Wonderful.
you can feel good about liking Joel Kinnaman because he's
Excellent.
legit.
That's good to know.
So
Um,
let's talk about what we watched then, shall we?
Super briefly, you know how Owen
Hmm.
likes um low effort American sitcoms?
Yes.
So he's currently uh properly deep into that 90s show.
Ugh.
Yeah, I
Okay.
know, awful. Fucking dog shit. But I'm enjoying how both he and I now have very, very different. We both have a very different Kurtwood Smith in our head.
That's true. That is
Very
very
different.
true.
Yes.
Uh, I'm
We
assuming
we
he hasn't seen RoboCop yet.
he's 10.
I'd probably seen it by 10, but we come
Oh,
from
I had.
different
Yes, I had.
eras,
But,
obviously.
it was the 80s.
Yeah, 10-year-olds now, yeah, okay, probably not so much.
He is mad to come and see Beetlejuice with me this week though.
Good. Yeah,
Yes.
I cannot wait to see that.
Oh, no
I
can
was
I, no
thinking of
can I, no
waiting
can I.
until my birthday because I'm not actually doing anything on my birthday, and I was gonna be like
Uh-huh.
maybe, but I don't know if I can wait that long. I think I'm gonna have to see it the day
Yep.
it comes out,
Yep.
and I'll just sit
Yeah,
around at
lots
home eating
lots to
cupcakes on
talk
my
about
birthday.
here.
Yes, indeed. Um, I
Where to
will.
begin?
I'll start since since you're looking at your letterboxd. I watched. There's not much that needs to be said about this, but I watched a found footage movie called Mr. Creep the other day.
Oh God.
That yeah, and this movie is I oh man, it's like a creepy pasta, right?
Yeah.
There's like this serial killer that everyone's heard of that supposedly has killed like 200 people. And he has like this clown mask that he wears that's really terrifying. And you can see him through like an analog television, right? Like with bunny ears. If you're tuned
Yeah.
to the right channel, you can see these broadcasts with him on it.
Okay. Nice
They
idea.
call this Mark. There is a scene in the movie where they're talking about this Mr. Creep guy,
Yeah.
and one of the characters completely seriously goes, "Yeah, but that's just like a creepy noodle. That's not a real thing."
Oh, fuck off.
A creepy noodle.
Hmm.
Creepy noodle?
Creepy
Why?
noodle.
Creepy pasta's
I
not
mean,
copyrighted. That's
it's
not
not. Yeah, nobody
trademarked.
owns that.
Nobody
No.
owns that's just that's a word that's like just a type of thing. Why would you change
Based on
that?
copy paste, isn't it?
Yeah,
surely.
exactly. Yeah, like
Yeah.
a copy pasta is when you copy and paste something over and over
Lift
again.
something. Yeah,
Creepy
sure, sure, sure.
pasta
Yeah.
play off of that. But like there's no reason to change that. And I just like I couldn't stop thinking about it for like several days. Oh, it's been like almost a week now, and obviously I'm still not over the fact that he called it a
Left a
creepy
mark
noodle.
on you. Hmm.
Yeah, that is the most that this movie made a mark on me. Otherwise, completely forgettable, waste of time.
Is it recent?
Yeah, I think it's this year. It's either this year or last year. I'd
Hmm,
seen other
okay.
people watching it and was like, yeah, sure, why not? In fact, it might have been on your Plex. Maybe Al downloaded
Oh, right. Yes, I have seen it there. Yeah.
it. But yeah, you won't like it. Don't watch it.
Mr. Creep.
Mr. Creep,
All
avoid it.
right. So we can finally talk about Romulus, can't we?
Mm. Did you want to talk about it now or closer to Gremlins to talk about the life cycle thing?
All right, sure. Let's do Inside Out 2.
I'm actually very curious. I mean, I saw you gave this 5 stars, and I've been meaning to watch it, but haven't gotten around to it. So
Yeah. Well, I adore it. I adore
good,
it.
great.
As well as Inside Out. I adore
I
them
mean, yeah,
both.
Inside Out is great.
Um, it, it- right. It's kind of become Pixar's stock in trade, hasn't it? How they're able to contextualize abstract concepts,
Mm-hmm.
right? Be it grief or the fucking, the everlasting soul or, emotions, aging,
Right,
the space between, the space before birth and the space after death.
right.
Pixar are really fucking good at taking that stuff and making it tangible and making it
Mm-hmm.
relatable and putting word and form behind abstract concepts. And Inside
Right.
Out does that. Oh, unbelievably well. Um, and it's got the cheat code to my tear ducts.
Yep.
I know everyone says they ugly cried at Inside Out 2, but I think I started crying at the opening credits. Um, just so relatable, so fucking relatable. The characters are bang on. The the You've not seen Inside Out 2, have you?
No, not yet.
There's a couple of running jokes through that movie that are just so fucking good because they're so I I hate how the term random has come to be used, right?
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? Not like random as in Family Guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they will just random as in something that shouldn't at all be funny
Right.
will just be treated in such an offhand, cursory way and will just be hilarious as fuck. Random's the wrong word. Unexpected,
Mm-hmm.
unheralded is what
Sure,
I'm
yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Stuff that makes sense perfectly in the context of the joke, but that you couldn't in a zillion years have predicted.
Uh-huh.
Right? Super funny. And it's just so well observed, uh, so relatable, and just perfect. Just five fucking perfect
Okay.
stars. Inside
I
Out 2 is
will maybe
fucking
tonight I will
brilliant.
watch Inside Out too.
Oh man,
Why not?
so good. So goddamn good.
Amazing. I last night was just in like a TCM mood. And so I watched a couple of things that I had recorded off of TCM and
Leatherface, yes. Leatherface and the boys.
no, 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 no.
Turner Class. Yeah, of course, I know. But whenever I see TCM, I don't go to Turner Classic Movies. I
And it's the
obviously go to
exact
Texas.
opposite for me. Someone else posted something earlier about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and said they weren't a TCM fan. And I was like, who the fuck's not a TCM fan? And I was like, oh, okay.
Get
No,
out.
there, I see. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see that. Like, yeah, I hate that channel that plays old movies and tells you the history of them. What a bunch of assholes. But I had recorded a couple of Sidney Poitier movies off of there months ago that I just hadn't gotten around to watching. I tend to do that because they'll do blocks of
Mm.
actors, and so then I'll just like record everything if I'm into that actor. So I recorded a couple of Sidney Poitier movies.
Is that what you
Um,
did with Robert Shaw? Did you watch them all on TCM?
I didn't know those. I had to find elsewhere
Okay.
because it's like they're not on demand. It's just like you have to catch them when
Yes.
they're on. So that summer that I spent watching Robert Shaw things was finding them from all over the place. There's probably some of them that now that I know you and you have Plex that I couldn't find. Maybe I can watch that they weren't
Yes,
streaming
I'm sure I
anywhere. But
could
anyways,
rustle something up for you.
yeah. I watched Edge of the City and In the Heat of the Night, both Sidney Poitier movies dealing with racism.
Mm.
And that by that look, I'm guessing you've seen In the Heat of the Night.
I have indeed seen In the Heat of the Night.
Yeah, I'd
Yes.
never seen it before. First time watch,
Mm.
absolutely fucking loved it. In the Heat of the
Yep.
Night is a story of a murder committed in this southern town that Sidney Poitier is sort of accused of at the beginning of the movie, just for being a black man hanging out in the
Yep.
vicinity of where it happened. And then soon we find out that he is in fact a homicide detective and the best in, Philadelphia, I think is where he's from.
Yes.
And he is called upon to then help solve this homicide with a bunch of racist white policemen.
Hmm.
Um, and it's fantastic. I love everything about it. I love the music choices. Sidney Poitier is amazing. That classic line that I've heard a million times but no context for, they call me Mr. Tibbs,
Yeah, which
in the context is incredible.
is that a sequel? Was that
I
not
think there
a
is
sequel
a
to it? Yeah.
sequel that is then called They Call Me Mr. Tibbs. But
Yeah.
when he says it in this, you're like, Jesus Christ, yeah, get
Yeah.
him. Yeah, fantastic movie. Super recommended. In the Heat of the Night is a classic for a reason. Edge of the City is sort of a mixed bag. It's a fascinating movie because I've talked on here about the Hays Code, right? And how, for a period in America, movies were like kind of had to strictly operate under this code of conduct that forbid a lot of stuff from being explicitly portrayed on screen, and
Drugs
not
and
like
such.
right, and even like things like mixed race relationships or anything like
Yes.
that, like, could not be portrayed on screen. Naturally, homosexuality could not be shown on screen at this point. And Edge of the City is really interesting because John Cassavetes' character is definitely gay coded in this. And he is running away from something, that he's in trouble with the law for some reason, and ends up working at like a shipyard where he meets Sidney Poitier, who is one of the like bosses there, which deeply irritates one of his white coworkers who's, on the same level as him. And that guy doesn't think that he should have power over other people and whatnot. And so there's like this tension between those two as John Cassavetes and Sidney Poitier become best friends, basically. And again, there's like
Yeah.
this undercurrent that John Cassavetes is like kind of in love with him, as Sidney Poitier is trying to like set him up with this other girl, and is like really trying to force him. He never takes any initiative on his own. You're like, what's happening here? And yeah, the chemistry between those two actors is incredible, and a lot of it is really just it's a great movie on many levels. I think where it ends up going ends up kind of the sacrificing a black man for a white man's personal growth kind of thing, that when you're looking at a movie that was made, it's like 1957, like we're
Wow.
mid civil rights movement, like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 act has not been passed. We're still in the thick of all of this kind of stuff. Um, and so you're speaking to an audience,
He's
of
still alive.
course. Poitier?
Yes.
No, he died like a year, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago now.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, you're speaking to an audience that like you're trying to persuade in some way, right? So having this like white guy go on a journey, and of acceptance and all these kinds of things with this black guy is kind of like there to for us to be not afraid of, and all that kind of is like, okay, yeah, I get what they were doing. From a
Mm.
modern look, you're like,
Mm.
don't love where it went. But I think Edge of the City is still a worthwhile watch. I mean, again, to watch John Cassavetes and Sidney Poitier in this is just like a masterclass. Super worth watching.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are moments like that, aren't there? The again, we only tend to appreciate now we've got a few years behind us.
Hmm.
Such a rare fucking thing to see,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
performance of that caliber on in the same fucking frame at the same
Right.
time. Yeah, it's lovely
Totally.
when it happens. Mm.
Yeah, powerhouse stuff right there.
Mr. Tibbs could have found Madeline McCann.
I'm sure he could. You know what? You're right.
Um, Only reason I say that is because there was no TV on holidays, right? Fucking
Hmm.
no TV at all. So Pete spent some evenings with his head in Netflix, and for some fucking God knows why, what reason, he's he was super into like a Netflix documentary about the Madeleine McCann case at
Nice.
13. Yeah.
I that's the kind of shit I was into at that age too, so
Yeah,
I get
completely.
it.
So I got thinking of fictional detectives who could have found Madeleine McCann. And I think Mr. Tibbs would have done a great
Naturally.
job.
Yeah,
Yes.
my dog is biting me.
Oh, Walter, stop it, will you?
I'm not a puppy, Walter. Um, yeah, I mean, I rewatched I Still Know What You Did Last Summer,
Hmm.
which is that is a trashterpiece to me. It is so stupid and over the top, and ridiculous. And I Still Know What You Did Last Summer is always a great time to me. I watched
Yeah, and what a great title.
I know, right? It was like my friend had, for whatever reason, had it on his Plex, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll watch that." And I saw Anna watched "I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer," which I
Yeah.
know she hates, and I have no idea why she rewatched this. So I'm very curious about that. But I've never seen that one. Um, but I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. It's a fucking
We
dumb
know that
masterpiece. I
the
love it.
quality of the movie is not a factor on whether or not Anna watches a movie. We know this.
This is true. Yeah, I can only assume I don't know. She's seen it before though. So
Uh,
maybe this is going to be a hell ranker. I don't know. We'll see.
Possibly. Yes, it feels like it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I will talk briefly about zombie creeping flesh.
okay.
So, um, I saw this one. I was scrolling through Shudder, right?
Hmm.
I know I wanted to watch a horror movie. I knew I was in front of Shudder. I knew something, there had to be something there. And I came across Zombie Creeping Flesh,
Okay.
and I was harkened back to my Fangoria days, my Dark Side magazine days.
Hmm.
And it was one of those that I'd always wanted to get,
Yeah.
a bootleg VHS of. It was one of the ones that fell under the Video Nasties list,
Hmm.
and one that I'd never quite got my head around to seeing. And it was right there on Shudder, so I thought, right, yes,
Nice.
let's go for it. It's Bruno Mattei, um, and it's awful, man. It's just awful. It's
I
just
mean, this
an
is kind
app.
of the thing about the video nasties is it's like,
Oh, a
there's
lot
all
of them
this
were
excitement about
shit.
watching them and
Yeah,
everything, and then you
yeah,
watch
yeah,
them and are
yeah.
like, Jesus, these are all so bad. Not all of them, but most are pretty bad.
Um, just a flagrant lifting of Dawn of the Dead themes.
Sorry,
Yeah.
the dog. Yeah, I'm here. The dog is just chewing on my chair, so I apologize for any weird
Okay.
background noise, but the puppy is being a puppy.
I did see, you will have seen me a minute or two ago checking my mic because I was wondering if that was me.
Oh, nope, it's Walter
Okay.
Goggins.
Fine, 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 fine. Because
Mm,
usually it's me.
it is usually you. No, this time it's on my end.
So, uh, not only does it lift just merrily from Dawn of the Dead, it also
Hmm.
helps itself to bits of Cannibal Holocaust.
Ugh.
In that some of the movie takes place with like, ooh, an exotic tribe.
Right.
Ooh, and I think those are real dead animals in there. You know,
Hmm.
it is liberally peppered with the most hilarious stock footage inserts
Oh no.
just for no reason at all. You'll get like stock footage of just birds of prey swooping into water to steal food, or like wildebeest or animals just roaming on the hillside
It's
for a couple
art.
of seconds.
Wildebeest?
Well, animals.
Sure.
There's
Does it,
wildlife
well, it just does
footage.
it take place in Africa?
Some of it does. I'm not sure if it's
Okay.
Africa, but it's like some exotic
Sure. Yeah,
kind of.
unnamed exotic
Exactly,
location.
exactly, exactly, exactly. Um, when the movie starts and it says soundtrack by Goblin, you
Oh,
think, oh, hello,
yeah, hey.
little bit of credibility. No, no, it's
Oh.
literally the soundtrack from Dawn of the Dead.
Oh.
Cheeky,
Wow. Okay.
cheeky, cheeky, cheeky. Um,
Interesting.
this is a movie of very little merit.
Hmm.
hang on. Some of the undead makeup is excellent,
Hmm.
right? Let's
Okay,
not take that away from it. You can see
sure.
what got it its slot on the video nasties list. Uh, some of the kills are great, even though the way that some of the kills are staged is again just lifted from better movies. Um, so yeah, not great. If you're a completist, if you know, if that kind of area of horror, the canon of horror appeals to you, yeah, seek it out. But
Right,
it's
yeah.
nothing more than a curiosity. There's nothing there really to recommend it.
Yeah, I've figured out at this point that, I had it in me that I was like, oh, it'd be fun to watch all the video nasties. And then after watching like three or four
It
of them, I'm
isn't.
like, you know what? Unless someone explicitly recommends one to me, not touching him.
Listen, it's like the fourth time that they've been mentioned in this podcast, but that's a challenge I would put in front of Anna.
All the video nasties.
Polish off the video nasties list.
Wow. That should be a Patreon thing. Anna and Steve
Yes,
do the video nasties for your Patreon. That'll
all of
keep you
them.
busy and miserable.
Uh, Another holiday Netflix treat was Source Code. You seen that recently?
I've never actually seen it.
Hey, fun,
I actually heard good things about it.
fun ass movie. Great cast. Jake Gyllenhaal's always great. Jeffrey Wright is always great.
Oh yeah.
Vera Farmiga is always great. Um, in everything but name, this is Quantum Leap the movie.
Oh, okay.
That's
Listen,
exactly what
that is the pitch I need right there.
I'm telling you. Imagine if uh Quantum Leap were to be rebooted with big names and a big budget. It would be Source Code,
Okay.
right?
I'm in.
I've never been more sure of the fact that you'll enjoy Source Code, right? He said.
Ruh-roh. No, I
Um,
will give it a look. I've heard good things about it and the
yes,
Quantum Leap as a movie.
Jake Gyllenhaal plays a soldier who, for reasons that become clear during the course of the film, finds himself reliving the same couple of minutes, even not even the same day, but he finds himself reliving the same couple of minutes to put right what once went wrong. And it's fantastic. Keeps you guessing, twisty, twisty, twisty.
Nice.
Great movie, great fun, a lot of
Okay,
fun.
source code, I'm in.
Oh man, so many randoms. Beast,
Beast. Ooh, that looked
do you know?
terrible.
And it is right, and it
Okay.
is. But
Okay.
so what do we got here? We've got Idris Elba,
Hmm.
delivering what will surely rank in the canon of all-time shit American accents, right?
Oh, he does an American accent?
It is appalling, this accent.
Oh, amazing.
Fucking awful. Comes and goes from scene to scene. Listen, I I know enough about the States to know that there is no American accent,
Right.
right?
Yep, sure.
Uh Idris Elba does not know this. And what it feels to me as though he's borrowing from a few different states.
Sure.
Uh, uh Awful. But what you do
That's
have
it's like
is
Daisy Edgar Jones and Twisters, just kind of like
uh,
whatever, I feel
exactly,
like at
yeah.
this given moment.
Whichever American you listen to last.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but what you do have is Shaldo Copley
Hmm.
in what is becoming an ever rarer sight to see Shaldo Copley popping up in a movie, particularly in a
Yep.
leading, a kind of a co-leading role like he does this
Yeah.
time. And he,
Oh, okay.
fuck, I love the guy, man.
Yeah, he's great.
He really is, and ah, he. I don't know whether this is deserved or not, but I feel he elevates content, he elevates material. He's really fucking
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, no,
You
I
know,
absolutely agree.
he always turns up to work.
Yeah.
Um, the plot is ridiculous, right? Just ridiculous. Idris Elba is a doctor who's returned to Africa where he studied to help his mate fight off poachers, and they fall afoul of a lion who's got like Cujo syndrome. What it's in fact, that's what this is. It's Cujo with a fucking lion in Africa, right?
Sure.
However, do you remember The Grey starring Liam Neeson,
Yes, I remember that
right?
movie. Hmm.
Do you remember the disgust at that you felt having watched The Grey after seeing the trailer for The Grey?
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
And realizing that at no point does Liam Neeson fist fight a
Right.
fucking pack of wolves, right?
Hmm.
That's one thing that Beast delivers on,
Oh, okay. You get the
right?
bonkers.
Fucking hell. Idris, this is a spoiler for those of you who haven't seen Beast, but Idris Elba fist battles a fucking rabid lion in an extended and ridiculous sequence, which
Amazing.
you know what I mean? Obviously it's a CG lion,
Sure.
and Idris Elba is flailing about like a madman. He's got a shiv, come on, and he fights the fuck out of this special effect lion. And I'm for that and Charlotte Copley, I'm going to give it 2.5 stars because you don't see that every day.
All right. That seems fair.
Yeah. Any more for you?
Yeah, the only other thing that I watched was the Slumber Party Massacre. That was
Oh yeah.
Joe Bob this week. I mean, they did 6 movies on the last drive-in. I obviously was not awake that long. I only watched the first one with the Scream and Chat the other night. And Slumber Party Massacre is just like a solid good time, you know. It was interesting to get some background on it from Joe Bob on there where like the screenplay, I guess, was like written by like a very famous feminist woman as sort of a
Yeah, yeah.
parody of slashers.
Yeah.
And then
And that comes across.
well, no, the studio changed that and kind of made it more
I seem to
straightforward.
remember it
But
it being very knowing.
it is like that's the thing is like it is self-aware to an extent. I mean, it is self-aware. Let me get that straight. But I don't think it's feminist.
Okay.
It definitely plays as like a parody. And one of the things Joe Bob was talking about is like a movie doesn't really have to be feminist or not feminist or anything like that. You know, it's just that it started as something that was explicitly meant to be like a feminist movie, and then it's neutral as an
Yeah.
actual movie. I mean, there are so many just extremely prolonged nude shots of people,
Yes, there
including
are.
just one that is so funny of like just a woman in the shower, and it's just like slowly panning to her ass and then just stays there for like half the conversation, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's you know, not necessarily something that you think of as like being a huge win for women or anything like that, but
Yeah.
the movie is like very funny and self-aware, and it's just like yeah, it's a fun time every time you watch it. It's nothing groundbreaking or anything, but there's some great like eating pizza on a dead body and things like that. Just like very good, stupid, funny things that happen in Slumber Party Massacre.
Talk to me super quickly about the last drive-in.
The Last Drive-In. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
How is that? I know the premise, but
yeah.
how is that broadcast? Is that on TV?
It's on Shutter. So you know how
Ah,
Shutter
right,
has
right,
like
right,
the
right, right.
TV
Yes, yes,
channels
yes,
on it.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it's the I can't remember what the channel is called, but it's like the one that when you turn on Shutter, it automatically is
Yeah.
on. Yeah, they do
Was
that
it ever
on.
on TV? Or was it always
So no, it
web-based?
was always on there, but like Joe Bob was the host of at least one show that like I used to watch when I was a kid. That was on TV that was basically the same idea. There were a couple sort of competing shows back in the
Hmm.
like 90s of like on Friday or Saturday night they would air like old, I think a lot of it was they were like public domain monster movies, so it was
Yeah.
very cheap, and they would have a charismatic host that would talk during them,
Yeah.
and Joe Bob was one of
Which
those.
is what Elvira used to do, yes?
Exactly. Yeah, Elvira was one of those people as well.
Because I was just unrelated to Joe, I completely, but I was as you often do, you're going about your day, doop to do, and I was thinking to myself about how I lament the complete lack of any kind of movie dialogue in British TV at the minute.
Mm. Hmm.
Because we used to have it, man. We used to, in fits and starts across different channels. There was a place on British TV for film dialogue and film discussion and people who enjoyed film for film's sake, and that's completely absent now.
Mm.
There was all through the 80s and 90s. There was Barry Norman doing the film program on BBC. Um, there was Alex Cox doing Video Dome on BBC Two. Uh there was Saturday Night at the Movies, which was a really short-lived film discussion program with Tony Slattery on ITV. And that is all completely absent now. There's no there's no space on British TV at all for cinema,
Mm.
and those who enjoy it, and I don't like that at all. I hate it.
Yeah, it's kind of a like, I mean, obviously like the 90s were like a big heyday for that kind of thing, and like Siskel and Ebert being on TV and
Yeah,
there being all kinds of shows like this. I do think there's less of that in general, but I kind of seeing a resurgence in some ways. Like you've well, you don't see this because you watch on Triller or whatever, but during Dynamite, they show a lot of commercials for like this one that I think it's Jason Biggs and his wife that host it. And it's like every
huh.
week they show a movie and like they talk about it and have guests on and things like that, you know. And there's like, I think, yeah, people obviously is what we do and what a lot of podcasts do is talk about movies. People like to
Yeah,
think about movies and talk about movies. One of the reasons I love TCM because they don't just show you a movie. Usually they introduce it and they tell you stuff about it. It's like for people
exactly.
who
It's
love
That's what
movies,
I'm
you know?
missing. That's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
missing. I mean, I saw, my first exposure to Cronenberg, to James Cameron, came from this slot on BBC Two called Videodome, where Alex Cox would introduce a movie and spend
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes at the start talking about the kind of cultural relevance of it,
Yeah.
the kind of the time with the time it was released, the context of which it was released, and it sparked something in me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It
totally.
it kind of led me down this path, I guess.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I hate that that's missing now.
Here, here. Amen.
Hmm. All right,
Now,
Romulus.
yeah, well, did you want to talk about Oddity or
Oh God, yeah, of course.
no?
Oddity.
Oddity.
So what we have here is an Irish, very indie feeling movie
Hmm.
from this year,
Yeah.
um, which it deals with a doctor and his recently deceased wife, and the kind of the bumpy and twisted road by which the killer is brought to justice through his interactions with his wife's identical twin sister, who is blind and a psychic who is able to read the history of objects merely by touching them. Uh, and this is a movie that I really fucking enjoyed, man. It is intimate. It's low, a cast of maybe what, five, six
R-
characters.
Right. Yeah, if that.
Yep, if that. But it's obviously seen plenty of A24. It's obviously seen
Hmm.
plenty of horror movies in and of itself.
Yeah.
Um, but it's super spooky and super eerie. Excellent scares. But you're conflicted, aren't you?
I am conflicted on this. There's a lot that I do like about this movie. I mean, like you said, it is very spooky. I like you said when we were talking about this before, I love something that like the ghosts are ghosts, you know,
Yes.
the ghost isn't trauma or whatever. Like, yes, there are themes of that kind of thing in
Yeah.
this, but the ghost is a ghost. You know,
Yes.
the evil
Completely.
entity is an evil entity. I love that about it.
Yeah, it
Um,
builds a world where ghosts exist and
right.
lives in that world,
Yeah,
which I
exactly.
I absolutely love.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that in it. The creepy sort of I don't know talismanic
Yeah.
mannequin thing that is
Yeah.
brought into the home is very creepy. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I like about it. My like central thing that makes it hard for me to like is how much I hate every single character in the movie,
That
except the sort of
that is a barrier.
deceased. Yeah, the deceased wife is all right because we don't see too much of her, and when she's just sort of like scared, so she's fine. But everyone else in it is like that very rich white people type thing where it's like every problem is your own goddamn fault. And I just like the whole time I'm just like A, people talk to each other, B, talk like a normal person. Like, like these are none of these things are real issues, and everything that happens in this is because like these people are idiots. And that is always a hard sell for me. Yeah,
Mm.
just deeply hated the characters in this.
Well, that's a shame because I don't necessarily agree.
Mm,
Uh, I can't really, with any degree of certainty, say what people who live in a world where ghosts exist and where one of them has been murdered would talk like. you know?
Sure,
It
but the
the
problems raised are very much of their own making. And I don't know, it feels like, and to be clear, like ghosts exist, but not everyone thinks they exist. There's
yes,
only
great
one
point, great
character
point,
who
great
thinks
point.
they exist in this movie.
Mm,
And she does nothing to help herself in conveying that to people because she insists on just being very, very weird all the fucking time and
mm.
imposing herself upon people who don't want her there and not reading any rooms. And, all of that is, it's just so annoying that it's hard to have any attachment to this character.
Well, I guess I would extend my previous point in that if I was someone who had to wear fucking gloves all the time because every object I touched gave me the spookies, maybe I
Sure.
would too be weird.
Right. But like, would you be
You
the
know,
kind
I
of
can
weird
believe
where
that.
like you don't understand it's like strange to come into someone's house uninvited and then be like, hey, can you make me dinner? Like,
If I was there with an agenda, yes, like she was. I mean,
sure,
that wasn't I got the impression that that wasn't just how she behaved. She was there to expose her twin sister's murder, for fuck's sake.
sure. Yeah, of course. I don't know. But because we don't know anything of her otherwise, it doesn't seem like the husband is surprised that she is
Mm,
this way. So that indicates to me that this is just her personality.
mm.
And so yeah, it's like one of those things where it's like story wise, I like it. I think it's really effective in being spooky and things like that. It's just it was very hard to watch because I was like every time anyone was on screen, I was like, I could punch them. I wouldn't
Yeah,
mind punching
okay.
them.
I can see why you would think that. I don't know if you agree, but I picked up a kind of a weird Agatha Christie type of vibe to it, which I loved.
Okay.
It had this kind of unfolding mystery to me
Yeah, yeah,
that was
totally.
based around the people
Hmm.
and their role in events, as opposed to
Right.
it wasn't just about ghosts and spooky
Hmm.
murders. It was also about kind of crimes of the heart and fucking
Yeah.
murders gone awry. And it
Hmm.
had this kind of pieces falling into place bit
Right.
that gives me this old school kind of British detective kind of horror thriller vibe.
Totally.
Hammer almost. There was Hammer horror in it
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
definitely. I remember
You know?
thinking that while watching it. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Um,
liked Oddity a great deal, and it isn't too much of a spoiler to say that the same performer plays both the
right.
murdered sister and her identical twin. I had no idea they were the same character until
No, yeah, that
the
took me a
same the
very
same actor.
long time to
Yeah,
figure out. It's like
yeah,
it was like basically once like I realized they were twins, then I was like staring like, so is that
yeah,
they look very different. It's amazing
yeah.
what like a haircut and like a demeanor can do. That woman was very
Yes.
good at playing those two roles
And
in
that in itself is
entirely
impressive.
different ways. Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Yes. Good movie.
Yeah, again, it's like all the pieces are like it's one of those things where it's like the characters are acting the way they're supposed to be. So
Yes.
like there's nothing I can critique in the actors in Oddity. It's, just what they're like that I don't like, but
Yes.
everything
It
about
feels
it
like it was maybe
is well made.
you didn't like it, but it wasn't the film's fault.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's like it's doing a thing that like irritates me more than it
Yes.
is like that I think it's a bad movie or anything like that. And I
Yep.
love where how it ends. Yeah, so like I would say watch Oddity. It's for me it just happens to hit on a giant pet peeve for
Yep.
me more
Fine.
than anything else.
Fine. Fine.
Yeah.
Fine. You're
Okay, now
entitled
talk
to it.
about Romulus.
Now talk about yay! Finally, finally, fucking finally.
Maybe
Fucking
in
great.
brief
Wasn't
though,
it
even though it
great?
was,
Oh
because
Jesus,
we
we've
still
been
have to talk
banging on
about,
for a while.
yeah, monster life cycles.
Right. Um. Surely you've all seen Romulus by now. Can we talk about it? Can we spoil it? Can we talk
I
spoilers?
don't want to like super I will timestamp it. So jump forward now to the next timestamp if you don't want anything at all spoiled for you. Let's keep it kind of minimal, but
Yeah.
like I mean there's stuff that we want to talk about
There
that is a
we have
spoiler.
yeah, by nature of discussing it, we have to talk about things. Right. All I'll say is, and you know how big this is. This was so close to being 5 stars,
Yeah, right. I mean I
which
five starred it. I was like, you know what? Fucking
yep.
loved it.
And that in itself is massive praise, right?
Yeah.
Because as everybody knows, the Marko fucking star system is
Hmm.
that last two half stars are there for the very, very fucking best films.
Right.
So the fact that this is a 4.5 star film, there is no faint praise here at all.
I'm
But
so
like,
glad you felt that way. I was like, the whole time
oh,
you were
it
at
was
the movie, I was like, I hope he's loving it. I hope he's loving it.
fuck,
I hope he's
man.
loving
Again, Fetty, you Uruguayan mad lad, he is the real
it.
deal, and he can
Yeah.
make the shit out of a film. He can direct the fuck out of a movie. And this is just perfect evidence of that. It is claustrophobic. It is beautiful. It is such a fucking gorgeous movie to look at.
Yeah, it is.
Um, it gets see the alien, the xenomorph is my other favorite fictional creature with a well fleshed out life cycle. I
Right.
fucking love it. And all of that is right up there. And all basically everything I love about Alien is mined and exploited and twisted beautifully and given its own fucking unique little take.
Yeah. I love that
Great
this
kills.
is like basically a teen slasher
Yeah,
version of
in the Alien
Alien.
universe, yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like as I was watching this, I was like, holy shit, this is, it's not trying to do the same thing as, even though there's plenty of like fan service and things like that, like references back to
Yes.
things. It's not necessarily trying to do the same thing. It is the teen slasher take
Yeah.
on Alien.
Yeah, which we haven't seen yet.
Right.
Um, I think there are some performances in there that you could that won't obviously, but that could credibly get talked about at Academy season.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. The
Andy,
android. Yeah,
yes,
Andy.
oh, fucking brilliant,
Yeah.
brilliant performance.
Yeah, he's
Like
incredible.
transcendent, better than
Hmm.
you would expect to see in a movie like this.
Yeah.
Uh, but it was unfortunately it was the fan service that you talk about that made me I
Dock it
could
the half
not with a
star. Sure.
I couldn't with a clear conscience do it, right?
Hmm.
And it wasn't even all of the fan service because 90% of it, and there is a lot,
Yeah, absolutely.
but the vast majority of it had really fine, compelling, believable reasons to be there in universe.
Hmm.
And Rook was beautifully realized.
Yeah,
So
people keep
fucking
on like complaining about that, and I do not understand that at
get
all. I thought that was
fucked. It was
perfect.
brilliant. It was
Yeah.
absolutely perfect. It was perfect as an animatronic and it was
Hmm.
perfect as CGI.
Yeah.
Um,
And
you
worked
know,
great in the story.
it was brilliant. I gasped when it became when they revealed what Rook was.
Hmm.
The model was great.
Yep.
It was stunning. But the line,
The line. Yes.
no reason for it to be there. None
No,
at all.
not
There
at
was
all.
no contextual reason for it.
Right.
There was no reason in
Chronologically, it
universe that
doesn't
it should
make
have
sense,
existed.
that because
It
people have said
was
like, well, he would have heard it. And I'm
would
like,
he
oh no, it's the
no
wrong
chance.
wrong order. He couldn't have heard
No
it.
chance.
Yeah.
It was almost a fourth wall break, right? It took
Hmm.
me right out of the film.
Yeah.
That line being in that film just acknowledged that it was a movie and
Right.
that look, here's a thing you know from a different movie. And
Right.
for a few seconds after it, I was no longer in the film. I was out and I was like, "Ah," I rolled my fucking eyes. And I cannot give that film 5 stars because of it. It
That's
was a
fair.
bad choice in an otherwise fucking stunning film.
Right. I get that. 100%
Yeah.
get that. And that did cross my mind when I was reading it. I was like, oh, that it's the one line that is, even though I mean
Yeah,
I laughed, I'm not gonna lie, but like it takes you out for sure.
it does. And
But
it
I
even
ultimately was like, I love this too much to not give it
it,
five
it was
stars.
almost like product placement for the fucking
Right.
franchise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even
Also,
though,
I'm
the
sorry, this is
artificial
just
pause.
yeah. This is just very funny that like my signal messages came up and we got in our group chat a message from Richard saying, has anyone watched Madam Web?
Yeah, well, no, I haven't, but I've
Yeah.
watched it, however fucking much I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
Awful.
All
Uh,
right.
so listen, what a perfect watch along film, eh?
Yes.
What a
Gremlins
perfect watch along
2.
film, and what a perfect watch along just to oh God. The choice of movie, and you said this to me right afterwards, had had we gone with Jason Takes Manhattan, which was the other fucking half of the Dead Heat
Yes,
for that
we
watch
ended up
along,
with a tie on our poll.
it would have been a totally different vibe.
Yeah.
And Gremlins 2 was just perfect. Was a
Yeah, I really
perfect,
loved
perfect,
people like
perfect pick.
realizing like Xander like
Mm.
realizing as you watched it, like, oh my God, this is like going in on my top 5 favorite movies. I'm loving
Yeah,
this. And like
it's
Ryan, who
superb.
thought she hated it, was like, you know what, this is better
Yeah.
this time around watching with friends. Like, yeah, Gremlins 2 is so
Stop
good.
me if you think this is crazy, right? But
Okay.
do you know the tonally,
Hmm.
um, do you know what I was most minded of whilst watching Gremlins 2 in the tone of the humor?
What?
I think it's way closer. When you think Gremlins, Minions want to be Gremlins, right? It wants that kind of anarchy,
Right.
that kind of chaos.
Hmm.
But the tone of Gremlins 2 felt far similar to me to something like Deadpool.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's certainly got that self-awareness to it.
Yeah, in that it obliterates the fourth wall and
Oh,
reminds you at every
completely.
step that you're watching a movie.
Hmm.
And
Even
it
answering
feels
criticisms of the first movie within this movie, things like that.
exactly and dismissing them, you
Hmm.
know?
Yes, right.
The
Being
guy
like, shut up and
who
watch the movie. Have fun.
the guy who dares to fucking question the rules. Well, what if you fucking eat something while crossing over a time zone? Gets cut off by being punched in the face by a gremlin. That's fucking brilliant.
Right.
It feels properly risky stuff. Like stuff I wouldn't have expected a movie from 1990 to even try, let alone get away with.
Right.
Um, and yeah, uh, you know, every now and again somebody will cry out, "Where's Gremlins 3?" I don't want it, man. I hope it never happens because
Yeah.
it would I fear it would be sanitized and toned down
Yeah.
because Gremlins 2 doesn't fuck about.
No, I mean
Um
Gremlins 2 is such like a funny sort of anti-capitalist meta
yeah,
narrative with like it doesn't hold back at all.
nope.
Um and I don't think you would a third one would not do that. It would be Ghostbusters, whatever this ice frozen
Frozen
kingdom
ice. Yes,
empire.
it would.
Oh, that's weird timing.
Oh, what's up? You
Oh,
froze
there we
there.
go. Okay. That was
Yes.
excellent timing of talking about Frozen Empire or whatever, and then the
Wasn't
thing
it?
froze.
Yes. But
What
yes,
were you gonna say?
um I would dread to think that a third one would just it would stoop to Gremlins on TikTok. It
Right,
would stoop to
yeah.
fucking it is here's an influencer gremlin. You fuck
Hmm.
off.
Yeah.
That's what I fear would end up getting served to us. But what it did remind me of is my undying fucking absolute fascination with just how, and possibly unintentionally so, maybe I'm reading more into this than there is on the screen, but how fucking beautifully fleshed out and fascinatingly idiosyncratic is the gremlin life cycle. The Mogwai
Mm.
to gremlin metamorphosis is so full of quirks, and it's so interesting to me to ask these questions. Um, and then also Alien,
Hmm.
the alien life cycle as well. The different phases of life of the xenomorph is also fascinating to me. I
Right.
don't think there are any others. Can you think of any other Griblies
Where you
that are
see the
so,
whole life
yeah,
cycle like
that are
this.
so you could right you could imagine David Attenborough narrating a Mogwai
Right. Oh,
documentary,
totally. Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and going through all of the various stages as it moves into its pupal phase. You know what I mean? You can see that, and I can't
Yeah.
think of any other beasts that get that same scrutiny
No.
on their on their processes and their
Yeah, I've watched
stages
a
of their
fair amount
life.
of creature features, but I can't really think of anything else that does this.
Yeah, and I love it. I fucking love it. And the questions it poses me, right? The fucking ugh. See, the first and the biggest and most fascinating question to me about the Mogwai to Gremlin life cycle is
Hmm.
Gizmo is the protagonist of both movies, right? He's the
Yes.
hero of the films. But he is the only Mogwai, the only one that we ever see in these two movies that doesn't actively seek its own reproduction and
Mm-hmm.
metamorphosis.
Yeah.
Every other Mogwai tries to get itself wet. It wants to reproduce, and they actively try to feed after midnight,
Mm.
deceiving humans, causing chaos and mayhem to actively try to get themselves into that next phase of their life cycle.
Right.
Only Gizmo doesn't do this, which
Yeah.
leads me to ask, among his species, is Gizmo the outlier? Is he the freak?
Right.
If Mogwai and here for Gremlins, if they are by nature of fucking a species of chaos
Mm-hmm.
and bad natured, why is Gizmo the only one who isn't? And that make him the wrong one?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Right.
You know
Like,
what I
because
mean?
obviously you can't propagate the species like that. Do you
Exactly.
have a theory on this, or is this like this is just
Right.
it's always been this gap
There
in
is,
your understanding here?
as far as I'm aware, no caterpillar tries to delay its own pupal phase.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
No, no fucking larva tries to delay its own growth into its next phase of life.
Right.
So Gizmo is the only one that does that. And why I want to ask the only person who I think can tell me this is Joe Dante, and I need to ask him this.
Which should be amazing. If anyone has a connection to Joe Dante, please
Hook
point
me
him
up.
our direction.
Or if
Um,
anyone knows that he been asked this before, has he come out
mm,
and spoken of this before?
yeah.
Because I would love to know. And the other thing that fascinates me, that I only um kind of started to twig onto during the watch along is why do Mogwai and Gremlins seem to covet the trappings of human culture so much?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right.
they want to be us. They
Yeah.
want to be us. The brain gremlin says it himself.
Yep.
We want to be you. And they do. Even before that, in Gremlins 1, they want to go to bars. They want to
Mm-hmm.
watch movies. They want to sing our songs. They want what we have.
Yeah.
And I love that too. That's incredible.
Do we know where they came from?
Uh, as far as the movies tell us,
Yeah.
no. I think the
Okay.
cartoon goes into depth on where they came from, their culture, what Mogwai society is like. I haven't seen it. I didn't even think it had been released, but apparently it has been snuck on the
Oh yeah,
Mac.
someone said
Yeah, it
it's
was
on
Ryan.
Max.
Yes.
Which yeah, I'm
Um,
very curious about. Uh
yes.
so yeah, I guess where they come from. Like, are they from space or are they
I don't know.
terrestrial?
Something
Because
in my
I feel
head
like,
says
they're if they're
like
like from
Tibet or
space.
somewhere.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like, obviously the movies we just get that somehow they are Eastern
Yeah, yeah,
things
yeah, yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
Oriental as is constantly used in these movies.
Yes.
Um, but like, is that their origin? Are they genuinely like just some species that like came out of a cave in Nepal or something? Like, or did they land there
Mm.
from somewhere else? Because then if they were like aliens, then maybe there's something to them coming here and being like, "Ooh, we want to be like the people."
And look, now I know I'm going off the deep end and overthinking it
Do it.
and fucking head canon
Hmm.
this whole thing, right? But what you've also got is one of the fan favorite moments from Gremlins 1 is Billy's mom fucking pushing the gremlin into the microwave, yes?
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? Now, in Gremlins 2, a microwave is prominently featured in a particular scene,
Yes.
and one of the gremlins recognizes this and says, microwave. Now, he has no reason to recognize that
Right.
device
Yeah.
or to know what it's called, but yet
Hmm.
he does.
Yeah.
Now, this suggests, at least to me, the possibility of race memory.
Like, yeah, genetic memory.
Yeah, how did I phrase it? Species level generational trauma manifestation in
Yeah.
Gremlins.
Yeah.
Are they able to kind of recall the experiences of past generations? Ah, this makes way more sense. They all came from Gizmo,
Yeah.
and Gizmo was in the house when that microwaving incident happened.
Right.
Is the
He's
Mogwai,
he's like the mothership for the hive mind.
indeed, 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 is he passing down his past experiences in some way, shape, or form to his progeny?
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I feel like that is somehow implied in here.
Very interesting to me. And see, you can enjoy the movie without thinking of any of this shit.
Yeah.
Um, but it's to me a commentary on just how fucking smart both of those films are. That
Mhm.
you can go in, you can think of the Gremlin life cycle in as much detail as you like, and it is so rewarding, so goddamn rewarding. And the idea of Gremlins 2 to mix in fucking genetic manipulation to make them even fucking weirder
Uh-huh.
it gives you even more fertile ground to think of because the fact that those changes are genetic implies that they could pass that on. So
Mm-hmm.
would future generations of gremlin that came from those
Yeah.
ones
Be mutated
also
from the
have those mutations?
right.
We know that Robert Picardo has copulated with a
True.
gender altered gremlin.
Mm-hmm.
Are they capable of uh,
Reproducing with
sexual
humans.
reproduction?
Mm.
You know, we know
Yeah,
that they
because
are.
we know that they do asexual reproduction, but there certainly are animals that do both.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Which, yeah, I mean, if that gremlin has the parts to
Yeah,
get it on with a human, that suggests that they might.
that's a big assumption, isn't it? What do we think?
We don't know
Because,
what they did, so, you know.
well, uh, I think we can. I think we can fill in the blanks there. We know that. Well, put it like this: every other gremlin and mogwai that we've seen on screen is male.
Hmm.
Yes, they
Yep,
if not physically male, they don't have a dick and balls,
right. But they
but they're
present their
all
gender
male
presentation
coded.
as male. Yes.
Yes, 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 yes. So with the first female gremlin that we've seen, apart from those external kind of signifiers, red lips, titties,
Hmm.
does that extend elsewhere anatomically?
Mm,
And if so, that with a vulva, that would indicate that that has the ability to sexually reproduce.
right.
What might that look like?
Mm, that's a good
And
question.
look, I'm sorry to pull on this thread, but even if that female gremlin lacks female genitalia,
Mhm.
would getting it wet in other ways lead to
uh,
traditional gremlin reproduction?
okay,
And
sure.
how might that look?
It's a weird but valid question as well.
Look, if a movie poses these questions, we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to the
Yeah,
text of the
to
movie to
investigate.
answer, to posit our own theories.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that makes it so interesting because to think about your question earlier of like, are there other movies besides Alien and this that do the Gribley's life cycle the way
Yep.
that these do? Um, I think that's what's kind of interesting about it is that in most things you would just kind of take it for granted. Okay, this thing exists, you know, it's born, it died, whatever.
Yep.
And they've created a movie that both invites you to question this because it gives you this life
Rules.
cycle, but also then says don't overthink it
Yeah.
when it
Yeah.
comes to the
Yeah.
second one. Um, so it's it is very smart in what it's done with this, but also invites all of these questions that like most creature features don't. It makes it fun for you to sit there and go like, but wait, now hold on, how does this work?
Yes. Yes.
That adds just like, yeah, another element to the movie.
Now, when it comes to Alien, right up to Prometheus,
Hmm.
uh, I felt like I had a real solid handle on the xenomorph life
Right.
cycle. So the face hugger puts its ovipositor down into your fucking sternum,
Hmm.
lays a single egg, which hatches into a fucking drone, which has the ability to lay a queen egg, which then has the ability to spawn
Right.
thousands of aliens, right?
Hmm.
But the introduction of the fucking s- strange
The
goop,
yeah.
the Prometheus fluid, that completely fucking threw me for a loop, and now I have no
Yeah.
clue about what the xenomorph actually is.
Hmm.
Uh, and the climax of Prometheus, which sorry, the climax of Romulus, which I
Romulus. Yeah.
adored. I
Yeah.
had loved it. That fucking guy, man.
Yeah. Dude.
And it's a guy.
And it's a guy. Holy shit. That is what is
Fucking
so great. Like, there was no part of me that thought that was a man while watching it,
not
which
at
of
all.
course is what makes it so terrifying.
Yeah.
This like very uncanny humanoid but not human.
Stretchy fucking fellow.
Yeah. And then I finally saw like pictures of the guy and was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's a
That
bloke in a
is,
suit. Fucking
yeah,
brilliant.
just a guy in a suit, which, you know, adds
Yeah.
to that horror. You know, it's always
Um,
going to be better when it's a guy in a suit.
the questions for me about the alien life cycle, right, that
Hmm.
I have yet to find a satisfying head canon for
Sure.
are how does it create the kind of that residue, that silicon kind of residue around places where it's building a nest?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That kind of
Yeah,
that
yeah. Hmm.
the alien walls where
Yeah.
it keeps people to
Yeah.
impregnate.
It's yeah,
Where
weird
does
little
how is
cocoony
that
things.
generated? Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. How is that generated? I adore how, and this is all pre-Prometheus. I adore how the drone takes the characteristics of its host.
Hmm.
Fucking love that. The
Yeah.
dog alien from Alien 3. Um, which by the way, the movie tie-in novelization fleshes out beautifully, Alien 3. Oh, it's
Oh.
great. It gives you it gives you a lot more kind of context about the prisoners on the planet and about how a lot of them are religious zealots.
Hmm.
It gives you a lot more about how
I guess gives you
the
some context for the Covenant, which that's like got a lot of religious shit in it.
yeah, it does. It does. It does. It does.
Especially the captain or whatever on that who is like a religious
Yeah,
zealot.
yeah. Um, but yes, which all of which is to say that yeah, post Prometheus, I'm completely thrown for a loop on what that species was originally, and how much is the goop and how much is
Hmm.
alien. I don't really know
Right.
anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I can't answer that.
No.
But it would be something worth diving into more. I'm sure there are people who have
Mm,
actually, especially with Alien. I don't know that a lot of people have dedicated as much time to the like Gremlin life cycle as you have. Although I'm
mm.
sure many stoned conversations have revolved around this. But I am certain there are people who take the alien life cycle deadly serious
Oh, for
and
sure.
have absolutely dissected every element of
It feels like
that.
I need to take this to Reddit.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's where I
Reddit
need to
absolutely
go.
has. I would be
Yeah,
interested. I don't know if there's a Gremlins Reddit. There might be. This seems to be a subreddit for everything. But
there's bound to be.
yeah, it'd be interesting to talk
Reddit.
through. But Reddit, um, yeah. This should be our like our goal someday to find Joe Dante and actually ask him your
I'd love to.
questions. Be like, listen, buddy, like we get that,
Has
like
he got a
it's not
website? Can
that
I send him a
serious,
little?
but
Can I send him a message? Is he on socials?
right. I think he was on Twitter, but you know,
Uh,
obviously we're not on that.
nope.
So
And never will be.
and never will be. But I would be very interested to find out that. Oh, there was something you pointed out too before we close out here that you mentioned was in the movie tie-in book that wasn't fleshed out in the
So
movie.
a big divergence, a point where the Mogwai of Gremlins 2 and Gremlins 1 split apart
Mm.
is Gizmo's progeny in Gremlins 2 are way more unhinged than the first bunch are. They're all the Gremlins of the original movie all seem to be kind of drones of a similar cast, for want of a better word. They
Uh-huh.
all have the same personality. They're little bastards. They will
Right.
attack on sight. They are rowdy. They cause destruction. They fuck with humans. But the Gremlins and Mogwai of Gremlins 2 all have there's a fucking idiot.
Hmm.
There's one who's, just hyper as fuck.
Yeah,
There's,
the smart
they
one.
all yeah, 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 yeah. They all have their own personalities.
Hmm.
And the Gremlins 2 movie tie-in novelization makes it quite clear that that's because uh, we see when Gizmo gets soaked by that water cooler going awry, the
Hmm.
water kind of trickles down a painting that Billy recently completed, which was still
Right.
wet, and the water mixes with paint, and that gives rise to these fucked up weird.
So are they like
Uh,
poisoned? Like
I
there is it like a
that isn't
toxin?
that isn't made clear, but the water is
Okay.
adulterated somehow with different colors,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
So that's
and
interesting
those
because that suggests that like the substance that they are like
yes,
wettened
yes,
by makes a
yes.
difference in what they spawn.
And
Like
thinking
what if
about
it was
it,
Kool-Aid?
exactly. Or what if it, in the case of Robert Picardo, what if it,
Mm-hmm. What if
fucking,
it's, yeah,
just,
well, yeah.
um, but fuck, more questions arise. Gremlins 1, uh, I seem to remember them spending quite a bit of time at the end in snow,
Hmm.
which
Oh,
doesn't
sure.
cause them to
Yeah. So the
reproduce.
form of the liquid also makes a difference.
Yes, it's state.
Mm.
Or even can a gremlin, much like a Time Lord can choose to defer his regeneration, can a
Hmm.
gremlin make the choice to hold it back?
Uh-huh.
Because snow is water,
Yeah, it
and it
is.
wouldn't stay for, gremlins have blood, they have a vascular system, so obviously, they're warm.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Snow would liquefy to water on a gremlin skin, and
True.
that did
That
not cause
doesn't
them
do
to
anything.
reproduce. So can they defer the reproductive
Interesting.
process? Is it something that they have agency over?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they seek out reproduction, like when Stripe climbs on the fountain or when he falls in the swimming pool, bang,
Mm-hmm.
immediately,
Yeah.
but not in snow.
Hmm. Interesting. If they could
Think
defer it,
on.
you'd think Gizmo would.
Yeah, see, this is it exactly. How does he get wet in the first one?
I don't
Because in the
remember.
second one, it's by surprise. He doesn't see it coming.
Right, yeah, the thing spills. It does spill
Yeah.
down the painting.
Yes.
But we don't hear that
I
that
can't
makes a difference. I can't
can't
remember
remember
how it
what
gets.
causes him to get wet in the first one.
Is a sprink? No. I can't remember.
What I'm saying is, if it's something that you're prepared for, if it's something that a Mogwai is prepared for,
Hmm.
can he kind of
Yeah,
hold it
right.
in?
Like, no, no, no,
Think
no,
of
no, no babies, no
think of
babies, no
your mum or
babies.
something,
Yeah,
and kind
right.
of
Power through it. I don't know. You raised some really
see,
interesting questions here.
yeah, they've again super smart. It gives you a really nice kind of it gives you a nice kind of basis of a life cycle to work from, and you can impose a lot more on it. You can headcanon the fuck out of that stuff, and
Hmm.
I love it. Maybe I am neurodivergent. Who knows?
Maybe
Who knows?
maybe a tiny bit. Listen, if you're reading tie-in novelizations of movies, probably not a
Like a lot
neurotypical.
of them,
Like a lot of them. If more than once on this show you've said, in the movie tie-in novelization,
more than once in this
you
episode.
might be a neurodivergent.
uh,
uh, Friends, do you have further questions about
yeah,
Gremlore? Obviously,
if
Marcus
you
raised
do,
some.
then
If you have
I'm your guy.
answers for any of them,
Yes.
please do let us know.
In
Give us
particular,
your, yeah.
if you can think of any other examples of movies
Mm,
where the Gribbly has a really nicely fleshed out circle of life,
hmm.
if you can come to me with that and give me something else to think about except these goddamn gremlins, I would love that. In
Yes,
fact, don't.
absolutely.
Maybe don't. I got shit to do.
Yeah, right. Maybe that's actually a bad idea, but we want to hear it anyway. And we want to hear your theories if you have any, your questions. Maybe Mark will be able to answer them. We
Yeah.
are always happy to think about gremlins.
Yes. Anytime, day or night. And we love you deeply. Have a great week. Thanks
Yes,
for listening. You absolute gluttons for punishment.
truth.
And any words of advice, Corey, for this upcoming week?
Well, I think, in preparation for the huge meetup that we're having at the end of the month, it's more important now than ever that everyone stays
Yes.
spooky.
Yes.
And there's my dog.